So I'm gonna take a roll.
Here you are.
Gavin,
Here.
Steve, here, Bill,
Yep.
Wendy,
Yep.
Charlie,
Here.
and myself. I'm here. We have a quorum, and so we have a meeting in the way. I don't believe we have any minutes today. So we're gonna skip item one and jump right to the chair's report, which I'm gonna be brief because the meat of the meeting has a lot to do with my chair's report. Basically, in the interval between when we last met and now, the light plant has expressed, through Jason and Laura, have expressed grave concern about the loss of the load that is represented by Concord MCI. When that goes away, which is estimated to be, it was in your packet, but it's estimated to be between 0.6 and 1 megawatt on a very steady basis. They don't close on the weekends. They don't go on vacation. They're always there. That reduction in load puts bus bar 2 at even greater risk than it is today. And so the urgency of the battery that we have proposed in our Article 33 has greatly increased. However, Article 33 is constrained as to where the battery can go. It can only go in two places, a high school or the landfill site, both of which are on bus bar 1 and would not help. So we had a meeting on Friday that involved the potential for, figuring out a new way forward and possibly also expanding the 2 megawatt, 4 megawatt hour storage capacity that we were proposing, because we're losing up to a megawatt. The 2 megawatts would backfill that and give us a little headroom, but not a ton. So we talked about possibly expanding the scale of what we're asking for. We had discussed that here in our group, going potentially with our budget to go to 2 batteries, but we decided, let's just be modest and go for 1 battery. So now that multi-battery or multi-megawatt opportunity is back on the table in a much more realistic way. So that meeting we concluded, and then at the select board meeting on Monday, the select board voted to create a special town meeting within the context of town meeting that's coming up at the end of April.
It's been done before.
It's been done before. It's kind of a hurry up thing, but in effect, what that means is that Article 33 that we have been working toward will not be moved. And so a new article needs to be crafted to fit into that new special town meeting space. And that's kind of the main meat of the situation. So I've already started deeply into our item three. So I've drifted through that, but that's basically the lead up to what we're about here under item 3 on the agenda tonight. It is incumbent on the town to figure out how to protect the light plant's distribution network, and this battery storage solution seems to be the preferred option at the moment. So
Power failures are not popular.
they're not popular. So given that, and we are unlike, there was a small, maybe I'll let you weigh in on this, Mary, but there was a small comment made at the select board meeting that somehow Article 33 would, quote, be a backup article. I don't see why we would continue to worry about even moving it at all. Is there any reason why we would consider moving it? So I'm kind of talking about item 1, item sub bullet 1 under our article.
I don't remember that comment.
I think Mark Howell made it. It was like, okay, we're gonna have this special town meeting, and it will probably come just before Article 33, or it'll become at the beginning of the Tuesday night or
Yes.
Tuesday night session. We would just stop everything and say we're in special town meeting, and Article 33 would be after that. And I think Mark Howell may have said, oh, it would be a backup in the event that this fails or something you'd have, or I just don't see us having competing articles.
I don't know.
So, okay. So,
Particularly since if we were to pass hypothetically, we aren't in position to carry it
right,
out.
right. So that,
Well, the only other thing is that the feasibility funding is in that article.
well, that doesn't mean that can't be tucked
Right.
into whatever the
Okay,
special.
yeah,
the
no, I'm
special one is.
just commenting that.
Yeah, yes.
If they want to do it.
Right.
Yes. So, so that brings us to sub bullet two of our current agenda item, which is Jason. I'm gonna ask you if you have anything to say here, or if you have any proposed article, or anything for us to debate or discuss.
Yes, I do. So I have a brief presentation, and I apologize it wasn't sent ahead of time, but we were developing it until about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
So I will definitely send it along to you, Dean, so you can distribute it and also have it for the minutes in the packet after the fact. So I think, Eric, I think screen sharing is allowed, right? So I can share my screen. Oh, no, it's disabled.
The mother may I?
That's okay. I'd rather have a mother man
I know,
than
yeah.
a
You
Zoom
should be
bomber
able
coming
to
in,
now.
so.
Thank you so much. All right, can everybody see this presentation?
Yes.
So as I'm just going to walk through this very briefly, the background, because I know that you guys are probably more educated than most in the current situation that we face, but I think it's important to understand the request that we're making here and how we got to this point. So first of all, the town has two transformers that Eversource uses to bring power in, and those transformers then serve all of Concord, and everybody is either on bus one or bus bar one or bus bar two. The bars just refers to a physical bar that is connected to the transformer that then we can tap power off of. You'll notice that there are some portions of the where the blue and the green meet. We actually can, in some cases, choose which bus we're going to put somebody on. But I will point out that the buses are not something that are flexible, where we could just say, let's just move this 5% of people over to the other bus, because there are many power protection devices that travel along the distribution network and are configured to expect a certain load and a load profile. And so when you change that, you have to change those, and those all feed back to the substation. So typically what we do is, if we're going to have a new development or we need to make a change like that, it's an engineering process from a third party that makes recommendations, configures all those devices, does testing, and then it's a cutover, and it's usually planned for weeks or even months. And so it's not something that we could just say, well, these 50 homes over here, maybe we can just move those to the other bus. So I just wanted to point that out. So the other thing that, as Dean mentioned, you'll notice that the landfill and the high school are on bus one, not bus two. Bus two has the more serious solar saturation issues. So here's some real data from the substation on an April day, when what we call the shoulder months, where we have high solar production and very low demand, relatively speaking. So you'll notice that we have almost 7 megawatts of solar sustained for almost 2 hours on bus two. This is a substantial amount of solar.
It's hard to see the units on the left axis.
Yeah, so on the left-hand side, that peak represents 7 megawatts.
Okay.
Thank you, Laura.
Is that,
I
I have a question.
That might be me.
You're double
Sorry.
mic'd here.
There we go. So my question on that 7 megawatts, does it include private and are contracted from Kearsarge, or is that just what the
Correct.
light plant is contracting?
That's anything that's feeding back onto the
And
distribution
it's anybody
networks.
who's net metering plus.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So now on top of that, we'll overlay the demand, which is what customers are using. And you'll see that they're kind of inversely proportional there. As the solar goes up, the demand goes down. And I know it's probably very difficult to see, but the blue line approaches the 2 megawatt line there. I don't know that you'll see my mouse.
Yep,
'cause-
yep, it's easy to
okay.
see. Yep.
Yep. So there's that. Now, I just want to point out, we talk about going negative, right, as being a crisis. So it is true. If we go below zero and we push back, our devices are not configured to do that, and that would be very bad. But beyond that, we actually consider 1 megawatt kind of the danger zone, because our power protection devices today are mechanical, and those mechanical power protection devices, switches, relays, reclosers, they require a certain amount of load to be effective and quick acting. So if you go dip down close to 1 megawatt, what you're seeing is a delay. Instead of about 2 or 3 hertz or cycles, it could be up to 15 to 20. And what that means is that transformers that would normally be protected in the case of a branch falling on something or a car that suddenly takes down a pole and removes a lot of load, those transformers could blow up, or other devices could fail and trip and cause wider outages. So it's not really just like a zero issue that we're worried about. It's really getting close to one. And it isn't like you hit one and then you get problems. It really is anything that's low. Like, so even 2, the power protection devices are slower than if your load was at 3 or 4 megawatts. But it greatly increases as you get close to 1 and below 1. So on here, you'll see some lines. The green line represents the current low load on that day. The blue line represents what our load would have been if MCI Concord had been taken out of the equation on this particular day. And now our load is about 1.7 megawatts with that line. The other thing I wanted to mention is that several parties have come to us and have made it known that they're interested in adding solar. One example is the Middlesex School. So on this, we added, if the Middlesex School went ahead and developed solar, and that was possible, what the line would look like. And you'll see it's close to 1.2, a little below 1.3 megawatts if we allow that one site. And fortunately and unfortunately, there are many others who are interested in this. Obviously, there's homeowners that develop small systems, but we know of several larger systems. We're working on getting a list of that, but there's 3 that we know of that are pretty big, and they're on both buses. But Middlesex is on bus 2.
Can I make a quick comment?
Absolutely.
So I think it's important to stress that you have the control over the timing of when these parties can come, online with new solar or develop new solar, because you have the jurisdiction to grant approval or not grant approval.
Correct.
Right.
We can prevent things that will cause a problem to the network. Absolutely.
And does this projection include the almost certain growth in electric vehicle chargers on the street?
No, so we're looking back here at an actual point in time. As we electrify, that will increase the demand. As we increase energy efficiency, that will reduce the demand. Obviously, huge amounts of electrification for heat pumps and electric cars will increase the demand. But we're also conversely seeing, a lot of energy efficiency projects with lighting and doors and windows that are also dropping demand as well. So the next slide. Oh, sorry.
So do you expect it, in terms of the horizon we're talking about, to be roughly a wash between the?
No, I mean, I think we do expect electrification will outstrip energy efficiency at this point, but it's also the time of day that people are charging cars, for instance, and using heat pumps. Those are either going to help us or hurt us, right? Depending on when they're doing it. So if they happen to charge their car at a time where load or demand is very low, then that's going to help us. But if they're charging their car at night when they get home, that's not going to have any impact on this concern. So the MCI property is on that particular day was using about 650 kilowatts. They go up to about a megawatt of their usage. And as Dean mentioned, they are a very stable customer. They don't shut down on holidays or weekends, and they have a pretty even load based on the time of the year. We know they're closing at the end of June, but they do share a wastewater treatment plant that does use a fair amount of electricity with the Northeastern Correctional Center. I know there's been talks with Concord Public Works on figuring out how to move forward with that arrangement, because MCI Concord wants to obviously vacate and shut down that property and allow it for redevelopment, and so they have to iron some things out. So the good news and the bad news is we don't think that on June 30th everything shuts off. The full 0.65 to 1 megawatt shuts off. So that maybe delays the inevitable a little bit longer, but we do expect a significant load reduction once they've transferred all of the inmates and the staff away from the center, and they might just put it at a maintenance level to make sure that pipes don't freeze and But they're not going to aggressively heat and cool it the same way they are, and they definitely won't have the same load profile after they close. And then what we do know is that whatever happens to that property, and I know there's been a lot of conversations already, and this could take, years to figure out, but what we know about the community with its distance to the West Concord MBTA station, the favor for solar batteries and, mixed use development, potentially some municipal development, that we're not expecting to see a huge load replace that, because we do expect that there's going to be solar and battery storage would be required for that as well. So it might not make it worse, but it also isn't likely going to make it any better. The next slide talks about the solar growth that we're seeing in town. So in 2020, we had 3.8 megawatts of solar outside of the two Kearsarge locations at the landfill and the former WR Grace site. And that has incrementally increased up to almost 5 megawatts in 2023. We might actually be at 5 now. And that's a 1.15 megawatt increase. And to Charlie's point, we absolutely have a way to say, no, we were not going to allow an interconnect agreement. But, again, we do want to ask ourselves, is that in our best interest to stop people from spending significant amounts of money to help us achieve the town's climate action goals? And then we also expect that the Inflation Reduction Act is going to increase the number of requests that we see for solar and solar development. So the solutions that we've looked at, can we curtail the solar? Our agreement with WR Grace does not allow us to shut that off unless there's a true emergency. We're investigating what a true emergency means. Typically, we refer to our terms and conditions and contracts. That was not the case. And obviously, curtailment doesn't really support the town's goals because it means we're throwing away locally produced clean energy, and then we're having to buy that energy later, which could be solar, could be wind, but it could also be spot pricing that has a mix that includes greenhouse gas emitting sources and may require us to buy RECs later. The metering domain we've talked about. This is an option. This is something we're pursuing regardless. Even if we had 10 big batteries and we didn't see this as an issue, those batteries need service. There could be emergencies. There could be changes down the road that would require us to be more flexible. So we are pursuing this aggressively. It requires SCADA to be in place before we can start it. And we are investigating exactly what Eversource can require from us, because they do have a substation in Maynard that feeds our substation. And, worst case scenario is we have to make upgrades at our substation and at the Maynard substation, or the wiring between the two. But best case scenario, it's just some paperwork, regulatory hurdles, and we know we have to make sure that they can read our SCADA at our substation, because they have to have visibility into our network if they're going to accept power back. And then the third is the battery storage. Again, capital intensive, but it actually comes with a payback. When you look at other MLPs, these were just a couple that I found quickly. I was aware of a couple of these, but I did add some that are kind of larger. Wellesley, where our former director ended up going, they're just in June, I think they expect to go live with a 5 megawatt, 15 megawatt hour battery. Holden has got a very large one, 5 megawatt, 22 megawatt hour. Typically, I will say that when they say 5, it's just under 5, because the ISO does have certain requirements and kind of classifies you differently as a generator if you're capable of pushing more than 5 megawatts in one location. So you'll see people stick below that 5, and I would suspect that the Holden and Wellesley are just below 5 for that reason. I'll also mention that some of these projects are not being financed by the MLPs themselves. Some of these are being financed by third parties. Third parties do this because they're interested in the peak shaving savings, and then they'll pass along a portion of those savings to the MLP in exchange for the upfront capital. So we're aware of that mechanism and studying it. So our goals with this project are, number one, and these are in order. Number one, to protect the distribution system to ensure that electricity is flowing. We we are committed to making sure that we can provide power to everybody at all times. And that's the number one goal of why we want to do this. The number two goal is that by adding a battery onto the network, it allows for the continued expansion of solar in Concord. We're not going to be able to say yes to these projects that are in the queue if we don't add a battery like this. And then the peak shavings that both save us money and reduce emissions. The state of Massachusetts has pretty aggressive energy storage goals for the whole state. And they recognize that if we can use batteries to shave the peaks, we're not just saving money, we're saving power plants from being built. And these are the dirtiest generators that are out there. So when we talk about the battery and the scope, what we're looking for, there's two numbers usually we talk about, the megawatts and the megawatt hours. The megawatts is the power, the maximum amount the battery can charge or discharge. The energy is the total number of megawatt hours that a battery can hold. So you can have a pretty powerful battery, but that doesn't have a lot of energy, or vice versa. What you pay for, what costs the most, is the energy, because that's the total capacity. Megawatts reduces your financial peak expenses. So what you'll see is some of those batteries that we mentioned, like maybe a 4x8, 4 megawatts by 8 megawatt hours, those are being built to try to shave that peak for that brief period of time. They're not really being built to absorb a lot of solar over many hours. Energy does that grid stability and allows more solar capacity. So when you talked about goals number 1 through 3, this power helps with goal number 3, the financial peak shaving, but the energy, the kilowatt hours or megawatt hours, affects the other two. When you look at a smaller versus a bigger size battery, a smaller obviously lowers your risk for the technology investment. We know that battery chemistries are changing. The battery, if we bought one today, it would have a different chemistry than maybe the one we would have bought 3 or 4 years ago. And we know that these new chemistries with phosphate in them significantly increase the number of cycles before they start to lose a charge. And so, there's obviously a risk that in 3 years, if we were to wait and buy a battery, that there might be something new that, is cheaper or has a richer density. Obviously, smaller batteries, lower debt issuance and payments. And a higher powered and lower energy battery is the best bang for your buck in terms of megawatt dollars per megawatts, not your total savings or the total money that you would make, but it is definitely the most cost effective per dollar per megawatt. The larger battery, obviously the opposite of many of these things. It's going to help us deal with that WR Grace site, 4.5 megawatts of solar. It's also going to actually save ratepayers more money. It's going to achieve more progress toward the town's goals for our climate action plan of 60 megawatt hours. It is a lower capital cost for the total megawatt hours because of the economies of scale. Because of the IRA money right now, 25.5% for some of these projects, you're going to get more money, if you buy a bigger battery. And then it is a higher cash flow. So we have some financials, and we do have the assumption slide so that you guys understand what we're looking at. And I realize it might be very small and hard to read, but hopefully you can see the 3 lines on the right-hand side. What we did was we took 3 hypothetical projects. We took a 2x4, which is what we are building at the middle school currently. Then we did about a 4x8, a little bit under each. And this would be, if you kind of doubled that, basically, this would be the equivalent to 2 Tesla megapacks. And then the third one is kind of a 5x15-ish battery. So this would be 5 megawatts with about 15 megawatt hours. So that would give you 3 hours at 5 megawatts or longer, a little bit less. You'll see the assumptions and the costs estimated on the left-hand side, which we include, shipping, insurance, managed services, engineering, the installation, the rest of the balance of plant. Some of these get more expensive as the batteries get bigger. Some of these are more fixed based just on any battery project. You'll see also our ability to hit the peak increases, or the likelihood that we hit the peak increases as we get a bigger battery that lasts longer, because you don't have to be as precise. You're going to hit the peak more often if you have a bigger battery, and that is what gives you the money. So you'll see the net present value of the small battery is 1.8 million, the medium-sized battery it's 5.2 million, and the large battery is 7.4 million. I will also mention that these assumptions have the expectation that the peak shaving market stays kind of the same. We know that over time, as more people deploy batteries, that game gets more difficult and trickier and may have less value. So we recognize that that's a risk in the model. When we look at rate impacts, we just kind of left the two larger projects, not the current middle school project. With the exception of the first year of the big battery, all of these are result in a positive for our ratepayers. So the small battery starts a little bit over $1, per customer per month on the average customer of 883 kilowatt hours per month, and then grows. You'll see it kind of jumps in year 16. That's because we anticipate a 15-year borrowing and about a 20-year guarantee on the battery. We're seeing, anywhere between 15 and 20-year guarantees on these. And you'll see the assumptions on the capital costs and the credits above on the slide. So about 5.4 million for the smaller battery, and about 10.4 for the larger battery. I will also mention that this borrowing anticipated a 3.4% APR for the interest rate in the borrowing. That was what finance had given us. We asked the CFO today. He recommended or suggested that 4% would be a very conservative estimate for the borrowing. We did run those numbers, and it will tweak this a tiny bit, but we're talking just a few pennies. It doesn't change the fact that it's going to be a benefit to the ratepayers. I'll also mention that as MCI Concord drops off, and if some of these other locations add solar, we're going to see a reduction in the number of kilowatt hours that we sell, which means that the fixed costs for the light plant are going to be spread over fewer people and fewer kilowatt hours, which means that ratepayers are going to pay more for their electricity. So adding a battery like this offsets some of those losses or impacts on people. The assumptions, I won't go into the full details, but they'll be in here. The IRA credit is going to be used when it's received to pay down the loan, as opposed to just kind of going back into the pool. And then it's a 15-year borrowing, and we replace the inverters in year 10. The battery's being dispatched by a third party. What we see for a project like this, and what we're anticipating, is that it would have a battery control system just like the one that was proposed by the Solar Task Force. That is a good idea and something that we need. We know that today we don't have that SCADA information that we can plug into it so it can be as automated as possible. But we have, probably almost a decade of experience managing load for many of our customers. And this is a daily task that we do, where we take assumptions that and automations that are already plugged in, values for like when we know the shoulder months are, when we know the situation, and then we look at real-time impacts. Like there are real-world events that impact our customers' usage and their demand. So we'd be doing something like that. But once we get the SCADA information, we'll add that right into the advanced metering information, and it'll just get smarter and smarter and be more automated. And then the last thing I'll just mention is that we've explored a lot of different ways to address this. And curtailment, either we contractually aren't able to do that based on the agreement that we have, or I did talk to our engineers about maybe discharging some of that electricity. Apparently it violates some OSHA standards and is likely illegal. There might be something else, but it probably falls more into the last one here, which is adding load. But I'll get to that in a second. Tying the bus bars together. So we talked to the assistant director today and asked about that. It is actually done, but only when we need to take a transformer offline for emergency service, or because Eversource is performing maintenance on one of their lines that come to Concord. So when we do it, it can create harmonic issues where frequencies are built upon themselves and then cause an issue. So when it's done, it's monitored actively by an engineer 24/7. You don't just do it and walk away, it can create the transformer to blow up, basically, the entire transformer that feeds the town, if you just leave it there and are not monitoring it. So that's not something that we can really do long term. We have looked into and reached out to companies that build batteries and provide that upfront capital cost. It's not a hard no, but again, their business model is peak shaving. That's that last reason why we want this. So if our goals conflict with what they want the battery for, then we're not going to be able to say yes to more solar. We're not going to be able to say to address these resilience issues that we have with the network. But we are continuing those conversations regardless, because I want to feel 100% confident that if we go out to borrow money for a battery, that it's the best and only option that we have for the ratepayers and for the town. And then we've looked at adding load. Bianca, one of our light board members, reached out to a company that's in Concord that actually uses electricity to make hydrogen. If they use excess solar, then that's a benefit because they're using clean energy to make hydrogen, which only, when it's burned, only has a byproduct of water. So
Question, is there capacity now or in the near future, a drop in the bucket or significant?
no, it's small for that. So there, I've seen arrangements where, for example, a very large facility that does, magnetics testing and exploration, might be a research lab, and they draw, tons of megawatts, and they can turn it off and turn it on as needed. So they might enter into a partnership with the provider to provide that load shaving or load adding as needed. But any agreement like this would have to be very formal, and because they would be, staking their business on the expectation that we'd have. It wouldn't be like hey, on Friday, we're going to have a little bit of extra electricity. You want to fire up the extra reactor and make a little bit more hydrogen. It would have to be a very planned arrangement, and we'd have to have a lot more information probably with the SCADA system to be able to enter into a formal agreement like that. But it's something to explore, because we don't ever want to have to curtail that clean solar. We want to use it for whatever purposes that we possibly can to divert greenhouse gas emitting power. So I'll stop sharing. That's kind of the end of the slideshow. When we looked at the numbers and it did that, you saw that was like about a $10.4 million for the 4.5 or 4.9 15-ish megawatt hour battery. That's a little bit more than the original requests for the solar task force had, but that obviously included solar as well. So that's kind of our presentation. We feel like this, the solar task force has done an amazing job at finding sites that we can develop for solar. And CMLP is committed to doing whatever we can to support developing that in-town solar. But we feel that a battery of this scope and size is really required to allow that future development. Obviously, future sites that have batteries too will help. But we also know that we're way behind the curve in terms of meeting our goals for energy storage, both for the state and for Concord for our climate action plan. So we feel like this is going to be a step in the right direction. We feel like for all the reasons that Dean articulated at the Finance Committee hearing, for why this project should move forward with a battery alone, we echo all those sentiments and feel the same way. So I'm happy to entertain, questions or thoughts if anybody has anything.
Jason, I have two quick questions. So you mentioned there's a battery control system, but initially, will you expect E&E to manage the battery discharge and hitting the peaks like you do with the CMS?
Yeah,
So
exactly. For the peaks, yeah. But there will be a control system to manage like how the battery is charged when the solar is coming in. Like that can be automated even without SCADA. So, but yes, hitting the peaks, yes, we anticipate using the service.
Okay, and how soon do you think you can actually get this done? I mean, we're still waiting on CMS battery, right? I guess you're gonna have to answer that question.
The CMS project obviously is complicated because we're not just building a battery and solar, we're also building a school at the same time. And so the two projects are dependent on each other. They're in the way of each other and they support each other all at the same time. A dedicated project, especially at a site that doesn't have many zoning hurdles or abutters hurdles, I think could move very quickly in terms of the engineering that would be required. Projects like this happen all the time and are happening all the time. And, you know, the vendors that we have been working with for these projects are very familiar with this. And because we're not really waiting for third parties, we're not waiting for complicated systems and switchboards to be built, we feel like it could happen pretty quickly.
Charlie?
So the E&E arrangement, I gather would be in a sense, almost a service rather than, you know, something where they're basically, in charge of the business, so to speak. In other words, you're contracting them to do some specific things for us, and you want them to do it our way.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, Bill.
What, in terms of the proposed battery capacity, since its main purpose is to deal with unusual demand, does this leave a significant margin for the future installation of solar as planned in the charter of this committee here?
Yes.
So I have a question. The 3.9, 7.99, we'll call that the middle option.
Yep.
You step from around 2.5 million or somewhere in that range, 2.6, I don't know what the number was, but you're going up to about 5, you're doubling. But then when you go to the next battery scale, you're doubling again. And the main reason that that's doubling is because you have more depth of storage. But you're really only getting 25% more throughput. You're going from 4 or nearly 4 to 5. So you're just adding 1 additional megawatt of throughput capacity, and it's costing you twice as much. So just talk to me about how come what's the value then of that long, deep storage? What is that providing? You can do it over a longer window, but do we need that long a window? And would a more conservative approach be to just go down with the 2 megapack approach?
Yeah, I think the two thoughts that we had was, number one, if you look at that WR Grace site, and Brian and Laura have done some amazing analysis on looking at what that would take to shave down to allow us to build more solar and continue developing that. And that longer than 2-hour battery was required for that. We're looking at more 3 and 4-hour batteries to do that, number one. And then number two, when you talk about your ability to hit the peaks, you know, today and in the past, people were building 2-hour batteries because they could hit the peaks with 2-hour batteries. That game is getting much more difficult to play. And, you know, what you're seeing is the people who have the higher megawatt hours are the ones who are more successful in hitting the peaks and then getting that return of investment for people. And so we think that it's worth the initial investment to be able to better control the solar load and to be more financially beneficial. I don't know, Laura, do you have anything else to add, or did I summarize that?
Well, I would put much more emphasis on the former rather than the latter, in the sense that you're absolutely right, Dean, that the shorter duration batteries are much more financially attractive. The more storage hours you add, the deeper down into the hole you go financially. And so if you look at those summary financials that Jason showed, you'll see the sweet spot, you know, is the battery, is the megapacks, the middle one.
One middle one.
The problem is that if we only wanted to create the best financial outcome, we could just pick that one. But that's not really going to help us with the solar saturation. To manage the solar saturation, you need at a minimum 3 hours, and really more like 4. And if I could have money be no object, I'd love 5 hours, because that solar can really start being a problem as early as 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning and go all the way till 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So having just 2 hours worth of storage doesn't really get you through the whole solar saturation period. So that's the big problem. It's not, I mean, you're right, if you could just.
Okay,
pick
so
the
the
finances.
question here is, we're putting a lot of money on a problem that we cannot financially justify. There's no financial justification. It's more of an existential threat that we just need to pour money into in order to protect ourselves from.
Well, I think,
Because I don't see it making a better payback on the financial side. I just don't. It's more like you're just saying, I need more because we have an existential threat, and so we just need to spend more money to
it's
protect
not
for
just
that.
the existential threat for like where we are today, but it's, if we want to continue, I think one of the solar task forces, areas they wanted to focus on was seeing if you could get other people to build solar in town with their own money,
Mhm.
right? So the town
Sure.
didn't have to finance
No,
all of
I'm
it.
not
But-
arguing against
But the
that.
people we can't allow them to do that if we have no way to integrate the solar. So we look at it as a way to not just deal with the current problem, but to allow future growth.
You don't get to speak. I'm sorry, you're not a member.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I guess that does. With this
That's
implementation, what's sort of the message to Middlesex and other businesses? Where are we gonna sort of lift that battery requirement that they have now? Or it's case by case kind of thing, because to your point.
Well, no, I think we need to make a blanket policy that applies to everybody. We can't be,
Right.
Right.
customer, you, it was lifted for you, but not for you.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I
no, I
think what we could do is, make it much larger. Like, we might
Right.
still want to have a limit that says you want to put up more than a megawatt of solar or something like
Yeah.
that. Maybe you still have some type of requirement, but right now it's at 50 kilowatts. That really limits a lot of people.
25, actually, I saw on the website. It looks like, yeah, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, it changed.
So the strategy is build it and they will come.
Oh, no, we
No.
know they're here.
I mean,
How do you know,
businesses
but how do you
complain,
know that?
right?
Well, I'm not disagreeing with the
Yeah.
fact that we want to get other, third parties to spend their money, but I just want to know how, whether, what your thinking is about,
So-
staging it and saying, well, we're open. And if you want to sign up to do the solar development, we will respond by making an additional investment in battery storage. Or let's build it and they will come is the other
I see what you're saying.
alternative. You see, one is we're gonna expand our capacity.
Yeah.
And ramp it, and make it, because we have a scalable approach, or the other is we're gonna invest it all right now and then say, hey, come on in, we got this great, capability for you. You don't have to worry about it anymore.
So, but I thought we were solving today's problem.
Right.
Given what I see in the diagram, it would seem that every solar after this has to have a battery or some capacity, because we're not expanding. Because if we're worried about getting down to that peak, and yeah, we're gonna add more solar, every solar we add has got to come with a battery. Because otherwise, this should be, to your point, if we build it and they can come, well, if they can come, then we need an even bigger battery. Jason, I mean,
Can we
To-
put
to-
the
graph,
slide,
yeah.
can we put the
Well,
graph?
I just wanted to hear,
shows
I
your-
wasn't taking
your
a side on
shoulder
this. I just wanted to hear your
Yeah.
thinking on the trade-offs here in
Yeah.
terms of scaling up as need be at town's expense versus, building it now with a tremendous amount of headroom so we can absorb Middlesex and Concord Academy and all the institutional stuff or
Which
whatever.
slide did you want to see?
The one with the one,
Graphic.
that one, the graphic, that
Yeah.
one's good, with all the lines, it's good. So. This,
I mean,
So-
our problem today, getting down to the green line, saying, okay, MCI. If we're already there and we're just right now, if MCI drops, we're into danger zone. Well, we're into danger zone in June,
Right.
right?
Blue
And-
MCI
and
again.
the blue
right?
is MCI.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
then the question is, okay, so. Any significant solar, including the solar that we want to meet our goals, has to come with a battery. Has to help this same situation, continue to improve the battery storage in town. Otherwise, you can't add solar responsibly. Right, so it's not just, this is not an unlimited solution, not like put the battery in, everybody can go add solar, everybody's fine, we're done. No, everybody can add solar only if they cover their battery.
Right.
as well.
And I also want to point out that batteries are very different when it's utility scale and we own it, versus the average homeowner who might buy a Tesla Powerwall, because
Right.
again, we can control the efficiency, the peak, the strength, how it's serviced and when it's operating. But we might not be able to control those things. And if they don't line up with when we need them to, then they do nothing for us.
Yeah, the harm continues.
I think, maybe this is where you're going with this. I think that it's clear that, and I think our conclusion was that we haven't been keeping up.
Mhm.
So we have to make a certain significant investment just to get up
back, yeah,
to a level
Yeah.
where the squirrels won't put us out of business by, gnawing through the wires at the wrong time of day.
right,
So we've got to get, and the MCI and so forth.
Yeah, yeah.
Beyond that, it's an incremental investment based on what we think is gonna come
Mhm.
and how much we want to invest for what's gonna come and how sure that, how sure we are that it's gonna
Mhm.
come and whether we wanna scale up over time to meet that other, and I don't know the answer to that question, I'm just asking.
Yeah.
But I was sort of getting at the long-term solar task force. We've identified a whole bunch of projects, right?
Mm-hmm.
From our assumption is that every one of those, if we propose it, is gonna have to come with some sort of battery or some sort of additional equipment to mitigate some of this, because it's all town-owned,
Well,
or
remember, this is one side, this is one bus. Right?
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
We have
And
some headroom on.
there's
bus
some-
one
Yeah, you
still.
you were planning
We
to
have 2.5.
spend up.
2.5.
2.5.
spend
Half on the other
that.
one.
Kearsarge might use a little bit of that.
Right,
And then, we're still
were gonna
playing
back it up for
a little
our
game
project.
here, right?
right, yeah.
We were gonna max that out. If we did.
Yeah, if we did all the stuff we were
in
gonna do.
trouble. That's
Right.
why we had to get the battery.
Yeah, no,
Right,
I'm
yeah.
saying, but
To your point.
just thinking
Yeah.
about, as a
Yeah.
policy, we're adding solar and batteries every place we go. That we're thinking about,
Basically, as a rule, yeah.
As a
you
rule,
Have to do that, whether we pay for it or the third party
Yeah.
pay for it.
exactly,
You
that's
have
all
to
I'm getting
scale
at.
it up.
So you either build surplus capacity with some economies of scale, or you grow with batteries.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about the overlap then of the financial opportunity with the protective benefit. The protective benefit is that we store energy when solar is outpacing our load. And they're unusual. There aren't that many days of the year. If it's 20, I'd be surprised if it's more than 20 or 24-hour windows or whatever. But the rest of the time, we're trying to do peak shaving for financial benefit. Are there points where in April or in September, when we're gonna have problems and we need to use the battery to protect the network, we will not be able to peak shave, and we're just gonna be at a conflict where we protect ourselves first and we don't peak shave in that particular instance?
I think in general, even on those really sunny shoulder afternoons, there won't be a conflict, because what we'll probably do is ensure the battery is empty by 10 or 11 in the morning, fill it up during the day, and dispatch it during the evening peak. The problem comes in when we want to maybe avoid spending the capital ourselves and go with the pay-as-you-go model, where a third party builds it,
Right,
but they usually only want to do that if they can participate in the peak shaving
right.
savings.
Sure.
And they're not gonna want to hear about any other constraints that they have to adhere to.
Right.
They're gonna wanna go guns for, this
Mhm.
is my goal. I wanna make sure I get this
Sure.
money.
Right.
So it might be hard to structure an arrangement. I don't know of any other MLP, certainly not Massachusetts, facing solar saturation right now. I think we are kind of, we're applying for this GRIP grant and we're going in with a
Right.
number of other MLPs. Nobody's talking about this. We're the only one.
Okay.
Well, we can also pay as we go. It doesn't have to be the third party that does it. We could say, we have a plan where we're going to ramp our battery investments over time
Oh, but you'd
to
still need,
basically correspond with what our assumptions are about the growth in solar. We don't have to do it all up front. We're
but you
gonna
would need to do it in chunks if we were gonna own and
Yeah,
operate it,
you
right?
do it in chunks. It
Yeah.
would be Concord owned, Concord doing it in chunks and Concord doing it according to plan, 2 years out, 4 years out and so forth. That's a different way to do it, and you'd have to it would give us a chance to lock in these opportunities and let them develop their plans, let them commit to implement them. And then we go make our investment, and the two will probably take about as much time to put in.
I think.
So
Phil's-
anyway, I'm just saying that's an alternative.
I think Phil's point, though, is that, and I agree with him, that you have to consider the benefits of what you just outlined, which are considerable. against the disadvantage of losing the economies of scale, not just in dollars for one installation versus 3 or 4, but in terms of time as well. These
Well,
things
okay.
takes, quite a bit of time to invest in to get them up and running.
You
And
also get the benefit of the technology.
yes, you do.
Improvement.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Technology,
You definitely get that.
cheaper and more powerful and so forth. But, that's, it's a
Good
business
question.
decision, just a question.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
good.
I will point out that we did ask about battery prices falling, and our contacts at E&E do not foresee battery prices falling because of strong demands, especially with the IRA credits and people buying them. So we're definitely not going to see a precipitous drop, in a year or 2 years. It is possible through different technologies that prices will fall, or if production, ramps up, and outstrips demand, then it will. But our concern was we didn't want to make a huge investment if in 2 years it would have been half the price. And we're pretty certain that's not going to happen, but it's obviously a crystal ball. You need to understand exactly what's going to happen in 2 to 5 years.
Okay,
Okay.
is there any,
So, I mean,
further
just to be
discussion?
clear, so the recommendation that you're putting forth is the larger one, the 5 megawatt, 15 hour, just to be clear, I mean, because there were 3 options, but that's the one you're recommending.
Because this is
Because we can vote,
because this topic is of interest, I don't know that I hear any more conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one, Dean.
Yeah,
I wanted to ask, if we're talking about the incremental build and thinking about the alternative slide that you showed, Jason, is CMLP studying at all of doing sort of the newer kind of grid modernization ideas of using the virtual power plants approach where you're setting like vehicle to grid rates and you can tap into homeowners' batteries, or alternative investments in electric school buses and tapping those as batteries? That's sort of the non-wires alternative approach.
Yeah, we are. So I think the problem that we're facing is that, number one, we need to have the resilience to guarantee that the power stays on. Number two, we need to expand our use of those things, but we can't rely on them 100%. I think they're going to help us with our clean energy goals, and they might help us with getting cheaper clean energy. But the problem is, like recently, just 2 days ago, the manufacturer of the electric buses at the bus depot pushed an over-the-air update that caused the buses to charge twice as fast and blew up the meter and caught that on fire, almost created a fire at the building there. And so they were out of commission for a while. And so if you are relying on things like that to make sure that your whole town doesn't go down, then I think you're in a pretty precarious situation and you're not going to want to have many people operate that system. But if you have a baseline where you have something like this that is protecting the grid, and then as you look, as Charlie said, I couldn't have said it better, as you look and you've dug yourself out of that hole, like how can we improve and keep going to achieve those goals? Then absolutely it's things like that. And yes, Brian did a great job going to town meeting, getting some money to upgrade the bus depot so that we could get some vehicle to grid storage over there. We're keeping our eye on that. And also Eric let us know that there were some trouble reliability issues with the electric buses recently. We want to stay on top of those just to keep people's confidence in the technology high so that we don't see a slide in the interest and the investment there. But yeah, absolutely. Like we need to do that to get to our goals. But I think we're just saying we need to do this just to get to a point where we can guarantee that the lights will stay on.
And
Yeah, that
what
makes
you're
sense.
also telling us is that we have some potential sources of power that have a significantly lower reliability factor.
Yes, it's a great way to put it.
Yeah, I was thinking in terms of, if we're buying the smaller battery now or the bigger battery, how do you get out of the hole and then how do you take the next steps? Like with the, let's say, electric school buses, if we were to use vehicle to grid, those could be cited on that bus bar one. That's the trouble. So yeah, just making sure that we're keeping track of the longer term. Like if we invest in the short term now, that it doesn't preclude any investments that might be cheaper in the longer run, such as setting that like virtual power plant rate in town or something like that.
I don't know the exact capacity, but I know that the current wiring that goes to the bus depot would not allow us to have an electric school bus fleet we'd have to do a couple $1 million worth of work to upgrade the power lines all the way back to the substation from that. But yeah, I mean, those are the things we have to identify and plan for and get, out there on our plan so that we can show people like these are the options. And then just like you guys are doing, we need to do that analysis, put it in front of people and let the town and the light board and the people who come to the light board make those decisions and recommendations so that we can achieve the town's goals and make sure that we're always checking in with what people want and what they're interested in.
And as we've been learning on the solar task force, everything takes a while with this type of stuff. So are there any measures that you're thinking about taking, because you're gonna have to site, permit, interconnect, run the battery? Are there any measures you're thinking about taking to sort of stay below that crisis zone before June 1st or whenever MCI Concord closes?
Yeah, we have, breaking the contract with Kearsarge, which could be very costly because we not only have to pay them for the electricity, but also the RECs that they would have produced, might be an emergency option. Finding out more about the date in the wastewater treatment plant. So we don't think that, again, as I mentioned, we don't think that June 30th, suddenly the load drops by a megawatt. We think that it's going to be more gradual than that, but trying to read, the state and what their plans are and DCAM and how that is going to work will tell us when the crisis point is. I mentioned it's not easy to move chunks of town from one bus bar to another, but there are points where the buses meet. And so we can certainly evaluate some options like that, but it's going to buy us, a very small amount of time, not a lot of time.
Okay. Sounds like a lot of unknowns, unfortunately.
Okay, this is of great interest to the community, so even though our comment section is usually at the end, I'm willing to open the floor to anyone who would like to make a public comment at this time.
One chance.
Am I allowed?
Yeah.
Thanks a ton, Dean. I appreciate it. Just a few dumb questions. The Kearsarge contract, the one covering the landfill, not the W.R. Grace, but I believe that will have achieved 10 years of operation, so it no longer has RECs that would have to be paid for. Is that correct?
That's right.
That's right, but it's on the wrong bus.
Oh, darn. The second thing, can the middle school battery be used for this? Since it's
On the wrong bus.
procurement is already in the way, and kill two birds with one stone here without
on
having
the
to spend
wrong
more
bus.
money. Maybe it could be moved and just locates a trailer, so it could be dumped off somewhere
Well,
else.
I mean, one of the reasons it got put at the middle school, right, is because the middle school is gonna have a maximum KW output of about a megawatt. So we needed 4 megawatt hours of storage there to deal with the solar saturation potential just on that feeder.
Right. So,
But keep coming with the good ideas.
well, I mean, I like to throw ideas. I mean, I'm trying to help.
I know, that's great.
So the issue with the buses and the power levels being low, is that a power factor level where if you injected volts, if you injected VARs, it would fix the problem?
Question for the engineers, but I know that with the number of electrical engineers that we have on staff and that we have as consultants, there's not an easy way to change the power to address this issue that we have.
So the thing is, there is equipment that allows VAR injection, they're capacitor banks.
Mhm.
And the question is, could that fix the problem you have with the feeders? And I understand that that's for the engineers, but maybe that could be saved for those people. So I guess my other observations is just having worked on developing projects that had great looking financial models, but then ended up being terrible projects, is I see 20 years financial models being, large risks. And what's more, I think you have a 3 or 4% discount rate. I'm used to like 10 or 12% or even more. Yeah, or 5, okay, 5, but that's very low. So while the town's borrowing costs are low, it doesn't mean that the light plant has a large appetite for risk, which is what one gets from using a 5% NPV. So I would look at, the commercial rate would be at minimum 10% discount rate. It depends on the company. The other thing, and I had a good conversation earlier with Laura. So, and I'll just say a few high points, which is there's a lot of uncertainty. You're projecting 20 years ahead of time, but you don't know what the picture is going to be like 10 years from now. So my battery developer clients have typically scaled back the revenue by some factor every 5 years to account for that uncertainty, say 20% every 5 years. And that reflects the fact that Massachusetts is requiring, on the wholesale level, batteries be installed for large photovoltaic plants. So you're going to get a lot of other battery developers chasing the same coincident peak, that same 15-minute window per month. And so that does introduce uncertainty. And so I would be conservative, and I would especially try and see if there's a way to partner with one of these third parties and get them to take those risks, because this is an at-risk project. And even on my home photovoltaic system, my financial model did not take into account the fact that squirrels chewed through the wire and it was out of commission for like several months and I lost all those recs. I mean, there's just all these real things where my friend who is an asset manager for a large solar project, but then high winds blew over all the 2-axis trackers and completely destroyed the whole project. They had to rebuild it almost from scratch and get new. There's just all sorts of stuff that can happen that you don't foresee. So I'll just point that out and hope that we can find economical ways. And as with respect to future headroom for future solar, I mean, it's a bedrock utility rate making practice that costs get allocated to those people who incur them. So if you have Middlesex or Concord Academy want to build, large plants, their rates should include cost recovery for any equipment we have to build to make the projects work. And finally, we're worried about wasting solar that is produced in April, but it's going to be very low value power for the ICE New England market, especially as there's more renewables online. So those are my observations.
Okay, I have a
Thanks,
couple of hands raised. Anybody else in the
Just-
public? want-
Just for the record, can you give your name and address
Oh, yeah,
for the
sorry.
audio?
Yeah.
Sure, my name is Dinos Gonatas. I'm at 260 Old Marlborough Road.
Just housekeeping.
No, that's good. Thanks. Gavin, you have your hand up. Jason, you
Yep.
got your hand up. So, yeah.
Quick question for Jason. Do we know how many batteries, residential or commercial behind the meter there are currently in town?
I'm sorry, what was the question? How, the count?
Yeah, the
Capacity.
count or what the storage capacity is for existing batteries in town behind the meter.
We do know
Any-
that,
Yeah.
but
I
I
was
can't
gonna
tell you.
say, yeah, any battery that has an interconnection, we would know about. But yeah, it's not like we have a spreadsheet open over on our other monitor that says the number, but we can definitely get that for you.
Yeah, we can get
Okay,
that for you.
great, yeah. Because maybe if there's emergency and need to tap into that, somehow change the rates in time to be able to do something like that, but good to know. That'd be great if you could get that.
Charlie?
Yeah, I
Jason,
didn't-
you had your hand up. Do you want, you took it
Yeah,
down.
I wanted to respond to Dino's. I think the two things about the financial piece, remember, that's a last sort of ancillary benefit to the battery, not the primary reason that we're building it. So, if we were here pitching this as like a money-making venture that had no other purpose, then I think that some of those concerns should carry a lot more weight than they do if that's not why we're building it, but that's just an ancillary benefit. And I would also say, even if we're off by 50% of all the estimates, still a pretty big reduction in the average bill of the average resident. So, but I agree that many of those thoughts and considerations about the financial models are fair, and that we're happy to create sort of the worst case scenario that we could foresee with all of those numbers. I still think it would result in a positive gain for ratepayers.
Aaron?
Well, it's somewhat of an unknown to me how these large possible private clients are responding to the financials, because I haven't sat down with them, and I don't know what they're doing with their P&Ls or with their analyses. I'm just wondering how far along some of these people have gotten in looking at the cost of, for example, developing a big rooftop system versus what the savings are against the Concord rate structure, and what they're, kind of, when they net it all out, how enthusiastic are they? And I'm not saying they wouldn't be enthusiastic. I'm just saying, I just wonder. It's just an open question about,
Well, they start off.
are they
pretty
gonna jump
enthusiastic.
right on this?
They start off pretty enthusiastic until we tell them they have to co-locate a battery, and then they get real unenthusiastic real quick.
Well, but the financials, even without the battery, just doing the solar, it's not like a big moneymaker. It's not like a big saver.
Well.
So I
you can-
assume they're doing this for environmental reasons.
A lot of them are, like the schools,
okay.
right? I mean, I don't think they're looking for, for the financial payback's the number one reason. I think they're more educational and other reasons,
Okay.
but, you know, if you do try to size the battery to just, avoid importing, right, and not export a lot, it does kind of, I mean, you're offsetting a 20 cent per kilowatt hour cost. So, you know,
Well, we looked at the BD and we have not a lot of luck showing great financial returns. So I'm just hoping that this does, that the numbers do work out and that these third parties do materialize. If we're gonna make this bump investment, betting on the fact that they will come. So hopefully we have enough experience to say, yeah, they will come. Therefore, the investment is a good risk. That's all I'm saying. Does that make sense?
yeah, absolutely.
Mary, you want to say something?
Yeah, I have a question and a comment. My question is, do we have a location for these batteries? And my comment is, I am not as technically sophisticated as the people in this room, so I'm imagining I'm sitting in town meeting. And I'm asking myself, well, you came with 9.2 to put batteries over at the landfill. And I didn't really understand exactly what that was gonna impact, what the impact that was gonna be to my electric bill. And now and that was 9.2, and then it went down to 3 million, and now it's back up to some other pretty high number, depending upon where we land. So we've got to simplify the story would be my recommendation. I mean, I've pretty much followed it because I've been following, but if I'm in the audience, we've got to simplify this because we've been kind of, and how long do we have? 3 minutes at town meeting? The moderator will
Yes, you'll get 5. I think
Okay,
you'll get 5.
5 minutes. Okay, so I'm just, you know, I'm just cautioning you, but, where is the location? Do we have a location?
Yeah, the best location from an electrical engineering perspective is the WR Gray site itself. The way that impedance works and electricity, if we put that battery there, there's a guarantee that the WR Gray site will charge the battery when it's producing solar. If we put it at the substation, which is another option, and probably the second best option from behind the WR Gray site, or the former WR Gray site, then we do run the risk at times when trying to charge the battery of it not charging from there, but instead pulling from the transformer. So, you know, we can try to mitigate that through some tricks, but the best site would be there at the former WR Grace site.
So what is our story as far as why we don't need a battery over at the landfill and the high school?
Dean, go
Thought that through?
ahead. Yeah,
We're-
Dean, would you
Go
like me to
ahead.
answer?
When we were putting up, as much solar as we had proposed, the battery in that location would operate more or less the same as the one at CMS. We're putting up so much solar that it would be helpful to draw some of that off.
I understand.
And, you know, in some of these moments, but that, since we're not putting that solar there now, putting that battery there doesn't really help the light plants.
So we're not putting solar at the landfill or?
No, well,
Not yet.
not on this year's
Yeah,
warrant,
no,
that's off the table.
Plus, we have the 2.5
Right.
headroom,
Headroom, we
2.5
have headroom
megawatts
there.
of headroom that
Right.
enables us to build without batteries.
Right.
But if we did I mean, just considering, if we did upgrade all the panels at the landfill and added the landfill solar and the CCHN, you would need more battery,
Yeah.
right? So that battery may come back on the table
may come
on
back,
plus
yeah.
one
Yeah.
at some point,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
so we needed it for our plan, but the plan.
And I think the key thing I've just heard is it would be additional batteries, not a substitute for.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Anyway, you're not wrong, Mary. This is gonna be a bit of a challenge to explain.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It all does. And we can connect the dots, but it's just hard. It feels like a bait and switch and.
Well, the
Pivots.
wild card here really is that after the warrant closed, MCI was announced to be going
Right,
going
right,
away.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
that creates, that
problem.
creates added risk, and this is a way of responding to
It's
that.
the information from the hearings to now that I'm a
I
little
know,
bit more,
yeah.
more
Yeah.
concerned
Yeah.
about, because of the hearings. We were still going with the battery at the landfill,
Right.
near the land, and then that was what, a week ago?
Well,
So
To be
that's-
frank-
That's.
to be frank, I was perfectly happy to not talk about location in that context.
Right,
Because if the arc of purchase was longer than a year, we could come back and correct the problem at a future town meeting. And we could still put it on the bus bar. You know, I didn't really talk about bus bar protection in that context because it got a little farther afield than I needed to go. So, I kind of hand waved it. Let's just put it that way. I kind of hand waved it.
Good.
The report that we put together, though, does put it that way.
It does.
It says,
You know.
we want to invest in a battery, we want to invest in a battery on the congested bus
Bus
bar.
bar,
and so
yes,
forth.
it does. Yes, it does. But I tiptoed on that because the way the thing was structured,
right.
you know, I couldn't put it where at that, as things developed, became clear that when we aren't putting those two solar installations over there, the right place to put this was going to be not there. So I was sort of trying to walk a fine line between, let's just get it purchased and we'll sort that out later, you know, but here we are. So now we have a legit article with we don't have an article. Do we have text? Do we have something to talk about that we can vote on and approve? Because
Of course we do.
Yes. So we used, the same language. I think you used the language from the middle school. We used your language and just took out the location and just changed the amount. I sent it to Carrie earlier today. I believe she sent it to bond counsel for review. I don't know if there's been any update on that. But what's the best way for me to get it to you? Should I share on the screen? Should I send it?
That's probably the best plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
How do we approve it if we don't see it?
Yeah.
You don't see it on the screen.
Yeah.
We don't have to approve it, we just have to agree with it.
Same thing.
Well,
Yeah.
we're supportive of the
We're
draft.
supportive of the draft.
Is it an
Motion to
article
draft
under
We just have
solar?
to be supportive.
No, this
Yeah,
might be coming
yeah.
from the light plant, not from solar.
Right,
Right.
it seems as
Right.
though this is,
Yeah.
we're stepping aside at that sense.
Right, so do we need to vote to approve it, or is this pure?
No, we're just.
No, no,
we're
it's
just-
support.
we
We
need
just-
to
we
see
just
what
need
we're up
to-
against.
It's
We're
not-
up
it's
against.
not what I'm saying, yeah.
Now, the
None of it.
real weirdness we got here is that there's no scheduled meeting for the light plant between
Right.
now.
Didn't you have a light plant, the 10th? Yeah,
Yeah,
the public hearings of 16.
That's not our problem, though.
No,
No, I
but they
know,
don't,
but they don't,
we're,
yeah.
it's gonna go on the warrant and they're not gonna have a chance to talk about it.
Oh.
The warrant closes on Friday.
They're doing an emergency, whatever.
What,
We don't,
who's doing it?
we're good.
What?
So Carrie, you
No,
can
I
just
think-
file it.
Right.
Yeah.
You can just file it.
I'm seeing it.
Okay, all right, so it's not really the light plant, the light board doing it, it's
Oh.
Carrie doing it, okay, that's fine. Yeah. Okay, now let me see if I can squeeze us down a
Yeah,
little
can you
bit.
minimize us?
I will, do what I
Great.
can here. Or is that not? Why can't I not get?
Drag it, yeah,
Yeah.
drag it down, yeah.
What if I drag it to, I can't.
No, just drag it
Yeah,
low.
that's good.
There you go.
There we are,
Can you see it?
Yep.
Yep.
Now we can.
yep,
I don't know.
big battery.
I thought it was 9.
We can go back to the PowerPoint. That was
That's
a
okay,
big
not
one.
now, not yet. No.
yep.
The design.
Thank
So
you,
this
Gina.
is the 515 size. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Take care. Yeah, you know.
Bye, Dinos.
Thanks.
So all we did is
Good.
take out the location and then
Yep.
instead of,
Yep.
solar, just added, just left the battery and then just changed this.
It just says in the town of Concord, that's the location.
Yeah.
Which is
That's
fine,
how you do it.
And the moderator was fine with that.
okay. It still does have the little clause we stuck in there called control systems, so there's
That's
still
what,
an opportunity there.
yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's talk about that for a minute. We had in the solar task force article, $100,000 just to get you going
Mhm.
on a control system for this type of thing.
For feasibility.
For feasibility,
Feasibility,
to get you going, I'm
Right, yeah.
sorry, yes,
Yeah.
for feasibility, to get you going, on a control system, feasibility. Do you expect that you'll have some funding within this 10-4 to do that, or are you? Because it says
Yes.
control systems,
But it says all planning and design, engineering and so forth for the whole thing, including control systems.
Right, but
Right.
in the 10-4, is there a line item that builds up to 10-4 that says do feasibility, of a control system? Or how,
Or do you know if that was a particular line? I mean, I know that we're gonna do it. The question is, do we want to leave that Article 33, for that, or is that ship sailed because it was all or nothing with the 3 million?
no,
No,
you can bundle it in
Yeah.
here, because the
But
text
it's
that
already,
says
it's
control
already in,
systems,
it's already in there.
Right.
Charlie. I don't know how 10-4 was built up.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
does it have
But-
$100
but
grand in
we-
there? for
Well, you
this
wanna see
feasibility?
you wanna see all the line items?
No, but
Get all the line items.
I would like to see the 9.2, because you took the IRA out and got 7.4. Can we just go back?
Can we
to
go
that?
back to the, how
Yep.
that number got built up, that's all.
Well, no, just the big number, because I thought it was, I have 7.4, but it started with 9.2. Where's the slide that has the three options and the dollars?
Can you bring
pull
that
that
back
one
up,
up?
Jason?
Yep. I'm
I
working
don't
on it.
remember seeing 10.4.
No, 10 is at the top of the larger battery.
Okay, I thought,
There it is.
okay. It was at the very top, oh, because. I
Yeah,
can't
well, you
see
got
it. It's
9,032.
so it was.
Yeah,
Okay,
then
get
you
down to 7.4.
But, so you have the energy storage system. Then
Yeah.
the other capitalized items, the things you can capitalize
Oh, they
are
all add up
the
to 10.
engineering, the shipping and duties, and the
Okay.
installation and balance of plant. If you add those
That's the
4
10,
line
okay.
items,
Yeah.
that should add up to 10.4.
Oh, okay, all right.
So there's no
Well,
line
let-
item.
Let's comment on this feasibility thing then.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. The feasibility study, as it was initially presented, discussed and described by us, you got a copy of that thing, had a lot to do with a very specific methodology, including load analysis and a lot of the things that I think you guys decided that you were gonna do through the SCADA system and through other means, rather than following the methodology that we had proposed, which was the feasibility study. And I think we kind of got rejected a little bit on that by Joe and
yep.
so forth. So here's my take on the feasibility study. I think you've got to study in order to figure out what you're doing, and you got to do engineering design and thinking and all that kind of good stuff on this control stuff, but I don't think you want to necessarily follow the feasibility study that we had laid out there, because it really doesn't fit anymore.
So if we want to go back to the text of the article,
Oh, yeah.
I'm fine with it. What I'm still left kind of questioning is,
Right.
what's the
Do you-
control approach that's gonna be used to decide it's time to charge, it's
Right.
time to discharge? And, we as a solar task force kind of went down this pathway, which is we collect some monitoring data. We then understand exactly what our load is and where our solar energy is coming and going from. And we have an automated system eventually that's taking advantage of doing that balancing. And that was sort of the way we had thought of this is gonna go. But now we're running top speed into getting the battery up and in place. But I don't see us bringing along what it's gonna take to make those decisions. I just don't see it. I don't know what goes in parallel to get those decisions to be accurate and done in timely manner. That's all. I don't see it. It's not well described to me, but the 10, well, you just added another, you just added another 100,000, I see. In real
Well,
time.
yes,
Jason,
You don't have to.
let me see if I can
That's E&E,
describe
right?
this
Okay,
in a way that I understand it, which
Okay.
is not gonna be technically probably terribly correct, but basically, we are still going to need to be able to do the moment to moment charging, discharging when we're charging the battery, okay? Because it's gonna be depending on the feeder level loadings and whatnot. We need SCADA to be able to do that, but there will also need to be some smarts, some control that's built into how the battery gets operated. And my view is that the amount of money we put in for engineering and design will be sufficient to cover the engineering studies needed to go in on the front end to do the programming of the logic of the battery. And the amount of money we put in the balance of plant, I think will cover any kind of additional hardware that we may need for that. And quite honestly, we were never gonna use the microgrid controller to dispatch the battery. I mean, I don't think there's anybody in their right mind that would try to, well, I shouldn't say that. There are people that try to do it, but when there's that much money riding on the table, you're not leaving it up to a machine to make those decisions. With the big professional companies, they got a bunch of people 24/7 making those decisions. And so I don't ever view us trusting that to a little black box
Okay.
Can I
myself.
All right, but nonetheless, what you're suggesting, what Laura, you're telling me is that there's money already sort of in
Yes.
a couple different buckets.
Yes.
That's gonna cover this level of monitoring that you need, whatever level of monitoring you need. And then some kind of hardware control subsystem that would be in balance of plant.
Yep.
So you got it covered. Okay, that's fine.
Now,
You've
are
got
my
money in there
numbers
for that. That's
all
good.
exactly right? I don't know. I don't know yet, Charlie. I mean, until we go out to bid, I mean, looking at you, I'm talking to him. Until we go out to bid, we're really not gonna have a great
Right.
visibility into exactly what these numbers are, but
Okay.
we're doing our best.
I know, okay, but you feel that you have money in there for the kinds of things I'm describing, then I'm comfortable. That's fine. I'm okay.
A lot of it's gonna be paid for out of SCADA, which we are already gonna pay for out of depreciation.
Fine. That's to pick up the monitoring side of it and
Yeah.
know where you are, kind of know where you are.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So,
Can I ask a quick question here? Sorry to interrupt. This 10.4, does that have the Energy New England fee baked into it?
No.
That's considered an operating expense, Gavin, so it's not in the capital number,
Okay.
but it is in the model that creates the cash flows, that cost of dispatching, which we could do via E&E or some other entity. We're gonna do what is the most cost-effective and best outcome for the ratepayers.
Okay, got it. So not in here, but works its way into the model. Okay,
Yeah.
it's an operating cost for
Yeah.
the long-term cash flow of the thing, yeah.
got it.
So, would you like, can I get a motion on this thing?
I make a motion that we support the article as
Yes,
presented
support
on the
it.
screen. Yes.
I like that. I second that motion.
Second, okay, so we have a motion on the table. And is there any further discussion of this motion? Okay, then I'm gonna take a roll call. Gavin, how do you vote?
Yes, support.
Steve,
I support.
Bill,
Yes,
Charlie?
Yes,
Yes.
And I support it. So it's unanimous and you have the support of the Solar Task Force for your large battery.
Thank you, guys.
And then
Okay,
the
for
working
your battery
assumption is that
project.
we won't move our motion.
the assumption is Article
Yeah.
33 is
Will not be
moot, is now moot. In our
Let's
view.
clarify.
Yes.
Can I ask this is an outside of the engineering of the topic,
Okay.
but
Are we done?
let's say that this project goes ahead and we get the battery, and it's gonna take a year and a half, something to build this battery. Does the solar task force or the initiative that we've started to complete more solar in town, does doing this have any effect on the timeliness in which we can continue to install solar? Either because the battery's not up and running yet, or politically because we can't come back to town meeting every year and ask for, several
Millions and more.
millions and millions of dollars to do solar. Is there a sense of, how fast and how hard should the solar task force, are we going to wrap it up with our report and let it pause? Or is there a sense that this task force should continue in some entity to continue to identify things and move forward on projects?
Well, I'll just make a comment.
Yeah.
The our charge is really to get that report out the door,
Right.
which just identifies sites.
Yep.
Should hopefully identify some strategies if there's
Okay.
problems with the public, if there's problems with other,
Yeah.
you know, entities for getting things done on those sites. So that's our charge.
Yeah.
We were trying to make progress, and given that Article 33 is now moot,
Right.
the progress is zero. Zero.
No,
No, we did a report,
We
we
did
have all this
No,
stuff.
the progress on.
On-
The
on-
progress
progress-
at town meeting is zero.
On
but-
building solar.
No, the
Exact-
secondary, our secondary piece of our
Yeah.
charge was to create momentum.
Right, and.
Okay, and we did not achieve that. We
Right.
were unable to achieve that. But that being said, once the report's filed,
Mhm.
we're kind of like,
We're done.
yeah, we're kind of
It's
done.
up to the light plan,
It's up to, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
or
Anyway.
anybody else that wants
I'm
to take
wondering,
action.
I'm not sure I understand that. We were charged with action, not just reports. Why should?
We were primarily charged with a plan, to
Yeah.
create a plan and a schedule.
And,
that was our
and a
primary-
schedule, and a schedule.
That's right.
Now,
Okay, and we were also asked to show progress to build momentum. I think that's the exact text of the charge.
Yeah.
And that we have been, you know, thwarted or unable to achieve, by the time we've gotten to town meeting.
and therefore, should we be asking for an extension, or we say we've
That-
done our
that's a-
report?
That's a, maybe at the end of the meeting type of
Yeah,
topic.
we, at the end of the, when we get around to, you know,
I've jumped
finishing
ahead,
off
sorry.
what the work is on, in front of us, when we get to finishing that, then we think about, well, do we really wanna, what's the future?
Right.
So we'll get there when we get there. But let's just try to stay on the topic here, which
Yeah.
is, we're on item 4 of our agenda. Jason, you got a quick update on these feasibility studies? Any, you know, few minutes on that?
Yeah, actually, Laura, would you mind giving an update?
yeah, no
on-
problem. So, this week, actually, the contractor is beginning work on the feasibility study at the landfill regarding the slope. And we expect a 6-week or earlier turnaround on that.
Good.
We received a written scope of work for the high school, but weren't happy with it, so we need to, go back and work out some more details with that contractor. It's a different contractor. But I do expect that once that gets worked out, that effort will begin as well, and because it's a different contractor, there won't be a conflict with them having to prioritize one over the other. They both can go full steam ahead.
I think there's a preliminary item, which is a legal agreement that's got to go back and forth with the district that's in process. Jason, is there a status on that?
What do you mean,
So
Dean?
There was some,
Yeah.
there was a proposed set of text that turned into a 5-page legal agreement that would allow us to actually get on the roof and do, or go on the campus.
Allow CML.
Oh, you're talking about the high school, okay.
Yeah,
sorry.
no, that's what
Yeah.
that was the second piece of the
Yeah, yeah.
puzzle. Yeah.
So regarding the legal agreement, again, it was a simple agreement sent to town council. It increased into an intermunicipal agreement between the school and the town. But we wanted to show that to our council, Duncan and Allen, who, you know, provides counsel for light plants, primarily or substantively. And they had a lot of concerns with the agreement that town council had drafted. And it was,
Who did,
it
the
was,
school?
No, the council that the light plant.
Oh,
Lawyer to
okay, yeah,
lawyer.
okay.
Yeah.
and
Okay.
so, but at that time, Dean, that was at the meeting that I had that information the day before or the day of that I came to a meeting where you said, all right, never mind, let's put the brakes on this, you know, slow down, no need to rush. So it's really in my court now. I need to figure out how to reconcile these competing council advices because they're very different approaches. And I probably just need to sit down with Carrie and review our options to see what protects the town's interests, protects the school's interest, and then get a document in front of the school committee and see if it's amenable to them.
To be quite frank, we have looked at the financials for the roof over there, and having the light plant build that on the roof is not a financially beneficial thing for the light plant to be engaged in. It's never gonna pay. You'll never get the cost of it, of producing the energy up there is almost 15 cents a kilowatt hour, and the wholesale market for that energy is 11 cents or less. So it's probably not a lifetime winner. So in my view, slow roll it or just shut it down. I don't see.
Well, there's also more to it,
Yeah.
which is,
Yeah.
the complexity of
Yeah.
retrofitting an existing roof with two different parties in charge of the same roof, so to speak, or the same commingled assets.
Yeah.
Is not something that, makes a lot of sense. That the better strategy for these roofs is to build it when the building is going up, and to include the solar under the same bid that the building is under, rather than coming back 20 years later and trying to add something.
Or in the event that an entity
Yeah.
wants to build on the roof, that it becomes part of their budget and becomes a behind the meter system.
Behind the meter system.
Because
that's
they're
right.
offsetting retail energy, which is potentially now can be made viable.
So if the school,
So like BD.
had stood up and said,
behind the
we want to
meter
do this with our own money,
Right,
they would have been the sole party involved in this.
right.
It would have been simple and straightforward, and it would have been their risk and not the CMLP's risk, and that would be fine. If the town wanted to accept that, I
Right,
guess.
and it would offset their energy cost, which they pay retail rates for, which probably would start to make sense after,
So why is that not something we should consider recommending?
Well, some of that stuff is in here.
Well,
It's already
It's in the report.
Yeah.
It was in the text.
No, it is in the report now.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's right in
Yeah.
there.
So, yeah, for rooftop systems, it makes more sense to not have the light plant involved in doing it and then trying to use get the energy and.
So in my
offset.
language, we have a recommended approach to rooftop.
Yes,
Yes.
we do.
In the document we
And the
did.
way we've been approaching the high school is inconsistent with,
Right.
with what we recommend. Yeah. So that, I think that's really our
Yeah.
position at this point on the high school roof.
So we're ready to talk about the report?
Yes, I think we're able to, we have, how are we doing on time here? We're doing pretty well. This isn't that well. Yeah, we're actually not in bad shape.
So the sections that I added were what I called a prologue and an introduction. And,
We're hard copy.
and many of which we have already discussed, but the plan items under each finding. So the prologue is sort of who we are. The introduction is kind of how we walked through this and what our story was from day one. Sort of the narrative of our work, and then the findings, we've discussed the findings already, and I made some changes to those to reflect the comments. I added the action items under each finding, because rather than having to go to a different page for recommendations, I just thought, well, we'd just stick them right there. So I've got, for instance, 1 and then 1.1, 1.2 and so forth. You want to put it up on the screen? So I
Yeah, I can do that. Let's see.
don't know what you all want to do in terms of
I
going
never
through
got
this,
any
or whether you came
feedback.
with comments. I got your stuff, yeah.
Yes, and I have no idea whether all, some or none were incorporated.
Well, I haven't,
We were-
well, I got that after that was kind of a little out of order thing, so the time to go through these items is in here rather than by mail, so I didn't incorporate it.
I think I've got the right text here. Let me just make sure.
Okay, there you go. But I
This
thought
one.
the comments
I
were
think
good.
that's it. This is the one you sent out by email to the group.
Yeah, that's the one I sent out.
Um,
So if you,
So you asked us not to wordsmith this, but to come back with comments. So do you want to go section by section, or how do you, and I don't know if everyone.
well, I think if we got something wrong in here, yeah, I think that let's see what you have to say about it, yeah.
I'm confused. We were asked to send a comment.
No, not
to
to
Rob.
send, no, you were asked to come prepared to this meeting with your comments.
Okay,
It's
so
all
you're
right.
prepared, you've got it in writing.
Okay, well, all right. Well, you wanna,
Yeah, so I didn't, I just had thoughts, so I wasn't sure.
no,
if
thoughts are,
it was on
thoughts are good,
Word or
thoughts are
whatever.
good, yeah, I don't want,
So,
I don't want, you know, a markup, I want, you
Yeah,
know,
no,
I
no,
just want
no,
your
I can
thoughts.
ask you later. So in the introduction, I'm hoping that.
Introduction, okay,
Yeah, under the strict financial scrutiny, hopefully it's,
where's that?
no, it's here. So I would say we're looking for a positive return for CMLP, not just break even proposition, right? It's in this, right, where is it? Of course, I have this teeny.
Well, are we,
bit.
that's a good question, that's good, we're
I'm
Please
looking
meet
for,
the cash flow neutral criterion at the end of the paragraph.
Yeah. right
provides
under the-
cash neutral or cash positive, I thought that that's what we were looking for, at
Well,
least cash neutral.
We're
Because we're a
nonprofit.
sustainability
and-
operation.
Right,
We
right.
don't want to lose money
Right.
trying to make the place better. But yeah, making money would be better, but losing money is not a good plan.
Right,
But-
so I was
but-
looking for a positive return. But that's-
No, I think with
Okay.
the goal of, as it were, saving the planet, if we can get our nonprofit light plant to do something in a break-even basis, that's fine.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so I think that's probably okay.
Well, a break-even basis is not good
Well, that's
financially.
why I was saying positive, but that's
But,
just me.
yeah, but if we can get, them to do something on a cash neutral basis to help us with our sustainability goals, that's a huge win.
Yes, it is.
I'll hop in here on this introductory. The first paragraph here, at the end of the first paragraph in the introduction, saying we did not pursue. Wait, first off, I want to say, Charlie, this is fantastic work, by the way. I wanted to shout you out for your great work here.
Okay.
But now we'll pick it apart. So
That's what it's all about, right? That's good.
yeah, so yeah,
sandwich,
you know.
yeah, exactly. So
It's under
this,
the you're going under the prologue here?
no, sorry, under the introduction, the first paragraph of the introduction,
So, yeah.
Which is,
just the last sentence
Oh,
of
the
it.
first paragraph of the introduction, okay, yeah.
The last sentence of the first paragraph of the introduction, I was thinking maybe here and throughout we can just say a caveat that that we considered these opportunities under certain criteria, but there could be other criteria, or that criteria could change over time, such as maybe CMLP values local power, maybe there's a resiliency play, maybe there's a green premium that the town is willing to pay, or solar costs go down. So if we could work a caveat into that, maybe here or at other times, just saying, early 2024, we did not pursue this. Things can change over time, something like that.
Something about, we're basing it on current conditions and priorities. And
Yes.
then the follow-up would be that if these priorities change or change the criteria, there may be alternates that could be investigated in the future.
Yes, along those lines. That general caveat.
Conditions and assumptions could change, right?
Yep, subject to change.
Yeah.
And I have more specific suggestions on that. I can send that after.
I don't know if
Okay.
it's the same one. So we just.
So just kind of a caveat there that.
Yeah.
that This
This
is
not
based
be
on
too
what we,
hard-nosed.
what we know now.
Yeah, right.
And-
Oh, no,
For
I do.
instance,
Right.
outside subsidies,
No, I got it.
something that may occur at some point.
Market changes in technology.
No, I like it.
changes,
I like it.
you
That's
know,
good.
You know,
Thank you.
So, and I guess just to go
Federal money on.
back to where it says we did
electric
not
vehicles.
pursue other siting opportunities for solar rooftop and canopies. That's not true yet. We're still walking through the rooftops, right? I mean, I
Well,
think
Well, we disposed of them in a way
Well,
by,
we've
we're
financially
suggesting
bracketed
that the
them.
light plant not pursue them.
Okay.
How about that?
Yeah.
See,
Yeah,
it
that
says
might be
CMLP ownership.
where does it say that?
Well, it's in the middle of the
Right.
intro
As we
paragraph.
proceeded
It
through
said,
this
it only
analysis.
makes sense
Yeah.
for CMLP ownership was
Right.
ground mounted.
Yeah, okay.
And then we will come back and say, roof mounted will still
Yeah.
make sense within the territory, but it probably is
maybe
gonna make
Yeah,
sense
that
Behind the
might-
meter or other,
Right, right, that's where I was going.
Yeah. That's
So
written
this-
down.
This is caveated in this sentence by saying that it only makes sense for CMLP ownership
Yeah.
as ground mounted. So,
Which is what we
Right,
have been
right,
doing.
yeah.
We have been doing town ownership, CMLP,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
yep.
I think that's one of the important changes I suggested. There's a but, and the but is very important. But an alternative solution which deserves further consideration.
The top sentence,
Where?
we're always
Let me see.
clearly saying town owned,
Where's this,
right? So in our
Top
internal
sentence of-
analysis, whatever,
the first paragraph?
right?
On
Rational,
land?
in town solar, that's actually town owned solar. In town could be anybody.
Oh,
Okay, rational,
Investments
you
for
know,
town.
well, we're making town investments.
right.
Well, we're trying to maybe in that sense, we're distinguishing it from purchasing solar from outside the fence line.
Okay,
Yeah.
right.
You know,
That's what it was, that's what that's all
Yeah.
about, it's a
Yeah.
baseline that, you know, if we can,
Right.
from
Should
an
be.
economic perspective, we're saying, well, if you can buy it for 13
Right.
cents somewhere else, why would you spend
Mhm.
15 cents to develop it here
right.
or
Right.
whatever?
So I think in
Right.
town is okay in that
Yeah, in
particular,
town
Yeah,
and then-
projects or,
and then we're making this trade off, and then the next sentence, literally like 2-3
Right,
lines
yeah.
down, it says
Yeah.
on town owned land.
Yeah.
So we're
Yeah.
being pretty clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What we're doing, so.
This actually is guidance to the CMLP.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
political cover,
Right, yeah,
in a sense, to say, well, no, the solar task force said, you know, this is
this is what
where
we,
we should spend our time. So we're not gonna,
yeah.
we're not gonna build solar on your roof.
This is our lane.
Right.
yeah,
This is the lane.
This is the area where I did propose and do propose an addition, because by leaving it out, we're dismissing rooftop solar, even though we know better.
Well, we're
No,
not, we're not
no, no,
dismissing
we're-
it.
yeah,
No, we
no,
have to wait
it's
till,
further
wait till we
down,
get to
yeah.
the stuff on rooftop. We're not
Yeah.
dismissing it all. We're simply saying that the strategy needs to be one of encouraging, I think you
Yeah.
commented on this as well, and the battery strategy also fits
I'm
where
referring to the-
where we want to encourage private development with private money to build up solar, you know, where we're not so stuck with
Right.
being the
With-
sole
with-
source on our limited land. We don't have enough land.
Again, that,
Or-
you're absolutely right, but what I take quarrel with is, we did not pursue other siting opportunities. We did pursue them and reached a conclusion that there was an opportunity, namely the behind the meter. So we did pursue it.
Well, I meant that in terms of the
Same of-
eventual article and the action that we were taking financially and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, but this is
We
gonna
didn't
be
pursue
read by
them.
many people afterwards, and it seems like we've dismissed forever rooftop as an opportunity.
We did not pursue other siting opportunities for solar rooftops and canopies using
CMLP
town
resources.
fund, using CMLP financial resources.
So,
Okay.
to Phil's point, though, it doesn't have to necessarily just draw private funds in. The town could make a choice to build a new public safety building and put solar up on that,
Right.
and as long as it's behind the meter and the
Right.
public safety, you know, the police department is benefiting from their electric bill being
Right.
lower, then it's still a town investment.
Yeah.
we wanna say
Not necessarily,
retrofit
but it's rooftop.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
We clearly know.
But
that
it still would be not
it's
CMLP.
not CML.
Right.
Right.
That's the
We don't want
distinction.
to dismiss it by absence.
No,
You know,
no,
so it's still, there's still opportunity for the town to spend money on solar rooftops.
Right.
It's just off the CMLP
Yeah.
radar. They're-
Right.
they're-
As a
They'll have to be
standalone
responsive,
project, yeah.
they'll have to be aware, especially if it's large, they'll
Yeah.
have to be aware, but, and it could. be-
Right, that's something you have to understand. This really is focused on CMLP money, CMLP energy, CMLP stuff on
Right.
town-owned land, right?
Yeah, okay, let's see, where were we here? So
We
I'm
good?
gonna scroll down here,
Yeah,
next paragraph.
there's something, you know, we have the reference to the 0.5 megawatt. In there, you also say 5 sites, but we're down to 4 sites, right?
Are we?
Didn't we, the White Pond
White Pond is off.
is off.
It's
Yeah,
off.
it's off,
So we
yeah.
have,
So
we have
Where's that?
amended
Where's the
the,
four sites? Where's that?
Oh, I had 5. That was my problem.
We're
Right, where's the 5 megawatts?
over here,
Oh,
next
no,
page,
it's the- Here,
So we,
right
it
here.
must be in here. There's a
we had the
reference to
land, we had the
5
landfill
over here.
expansion, we had the basin, we had we
It
have,
must be over here somewhere.
Five
have the-
sites.
the filter
Yeah.
beds, we had the filter beds, and we have a Mendolia, there's 4.
Right,
So-
right, it's just 4.
But there's 5 megawatts, almost.
Yeah,
Four
yeah, but
sites,
this
yeah,
is
yeah,
5,
got it, yeah, I'm
we
good.
found it, yep.
I think it might be aggressive, seeing the picture that Gavin sent out,
Yeah.
where he sent out the aggregate picture of all
Yeah.
4 sites.
Hmm.
If we're gonna try to get as much out of Amendalia as was proposed, it's gonna take a lot of that land. I don't know. if we
It's gonna
can get
take
that
all of
much
it.
it.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's gonna
You
take
wanna
all.
drop,
Well,
you wanna drop that out of
We're
it?
gonna
You wanna
drop
drop
it
that?
down by about to like a half
Yeah.
or so, I don't know. It just looks like it's taking a lot of that land. And I would be reluctant to take as much of that land as
If
that,
we talk,
because it also stretches out towards houses and other things, at least the way Gavin.
I'd be amenable to dropping the site altogether.
we'll get to that later.
We'll get to that eventually.
Wetland,
Yes, okay.
Yes.
So then we have the paragraph where we talk about where the opportunities are, and then we have. The upper.
Where are we now?
This paragraph here, this left the task for diminished scope on R20, and you talk about the parcels that are available. So that, and Wendy already said, we don't have 5 sites, we have 4. So that's fine.
Yeah. Future parcels.
Okay, let's go to the next paragraph. We're finished with that one.
Just pointing out.
Also, one of the disappointing aspects, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
In this paragraph here, I wonder how strong of a recommendation we want to have. You cite here you want high priority for funding and development. Is there maybe stronger language, maybe to the chagrin of CMLP, that says like we strongly recommend or we think these should be included in a 2025 town warrant? How specific do we think we want to get as a task force?
Well, we know the landfill is number 1,
Yeah,
right, priority, and we
Yeah.
really think that the high school is one of the few open spots for solar, so, yeah, it's a pretty, our highest priority.
Well,
Sorry,
then
I mean,
it ought to be put in the recommendation section, not in the paragraph. Where would it fit over there?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm just trying to make sure that we
think
use
it's a good
use
point.
strong
Yes, it's a good
language
point.
to recommend.
It's fine. Just wondering where we put that. It's stuff about, next year's town meeting and so forth.
Maybe in your number 4 recommendations and findings.
Oh, we don't have a priority.
Yeah. We put it in here. And you think that we should have those in town, the 2 in town meeting next year?
Yeah, I mean, I just think as a task force, we should think about how strong of language should we say and how much should we be pushing. So, I mean, I'm all for saying, please include it on the warrant, and we recommend that it's included on the
Of course,
warrant next year.
we don't know whether it's feasible,
right.
and we
Exactly.
don't know whether, we don't know a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Well.
6 weeks on the landfill, and then,
Yeah,
yeah,
well,
But-
we'll know something sooner or later.
Yeah.
There goes on the case.
And we don't know whether we're gonna get the okay from the
Right.
school committee either, so those 2 are even iffy. That's the problem with them.
But do you want to note in the report that there is ongoing feasibility studies related to that? That's
Well,
probably.
I think we wanna put that against each little picture. We wanna say this is what's going on with
Okay.
this one.
Right.
When we get the pictures figured out.
The thing I think we want to avoid is to say we did a lot of work and recommend nothing.
Well, I think we've put our finger on the pulse of, and the article that's coming in the special town meeting is something that really almost from the get-go, we have been saying there's a structural issue and it needs to be addressed, and it's being addressed.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's not nothing.
And we have reduced the list, we've
No,
increased.
but in terms
analysis
of-
we've done.
So,
Extending more solar in Concord.
We're doing that.
setting ourselves up. for
We're getting
success.
it, we're
Yeah.
getting the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Right,
without
that
doing
we
this-
need.
As long as we say what we're aiming to, in other words,
Yeah.
that's the part that
Yeah.
bothers me. if we don't say that
I think that's. I think
positive
that's in there.
recommendation.
Yeah, I think that's in here. We didn't repeat the stuff about exactly what is being recommended under special town meeting, and that's probably a problem with this document. But
So you might be able to sort of tune up, now that we have Article 33 is not in play. You may be able to tune up the paragraph that starts, this is a disappointment. This disappointment is offset by, because the article that's coming to the new special town meeting is going to really address.
well, I think this says it, doesn't it? It says what we got. We will resolve the structural issues with the distribution system that impeding our ability as a town to continue developing increased levels of solar capacity. I mean, doesn't that say it? Fundamental issue has been excess solar generation at times of low overall Concord load that could cause townwide blackouts.
That's the
I guess
reason
I
for
would
batteries.
just wordsmith those
Yeah.
sentences to be at least more aligned with, you know.
What
It,
we're now doing.
yeah, because it's sort of saying, hey, 50% of the grid is solar saturated, but it isn't saying, hey, by the way,
We've got to solve for it.
we're solving that problem, that's
Right,
being
yeah,
solved.
right.
So it may be just a little, you know, just a little.
The thing that it seems to me we need to be stronger, and that's why I made the recommendations in writing, is every 2 years or thereabouts, for years now, the town of Concord has chartered a study. And 2 years later, another study. So being more positive in terms of we're now ready to move towards action in whatever ways we want to.
Remember, yeah,
Is important.
these paragraphs are kind of the narrative of our process of discovery. And if we want to add stuff about peak shaving and battery storage, or the stuff about grid vulnerability, it should go under the findings, number 5 and
You talked
number
about it,
7.
yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Right?
fair enough, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That's where I think something needs to be added.
So
Collected and audited.
where are we? We good?
Yes.
Yeah, so we're on this thing keeps coming up, I don't know
I know,
what,
what is this?
there's some
That's where we need. to be
new
more
software
affirmative.
patches have been, from what?
It's the Russians.
It's like system message agent, what is system message
Well, at least you
agent?
didn't have to install it before.
I
you
don't
kicked
even
off
know
the
a
meeting,
read
but
is
you used
required
it.
from the system message agent. I don't know what it is. Random, doesn't take this software.
Right.
So are we okay with the rest of the stuff here? The next page, the proposed strategy to resolve the problem is installation of battery storage, blah, blah, blah.
I'm fully on board.
Yeah.
In addition to allowing us to build out scalable architecture, this is exactly what,
Yeah.
Right. Right.
it's exactly the presentation
We
we
got
just,
tonight, yeah.
that Jason
Right,
just
yeah.
made, so.
It is, that paragraph, I think that paragraph's fine, that's good. Yeah, good.
Okay, so are we ready to go on to the recommendation stuff?
Sure.
Okay, so we've already agreed to the findings, so I just put the recommendations underneath. I had a little trouble with the first one because, you know.
A
But
half a megawatt?
no, the first one is just, no, the first one is discuss refocus of CMLP to more limited ground mount objectives and scope with select board and with light board and obtain endorsement. I assume you'd like that, Laura, wouldn't you?
6.5.
Yeah. Don't you?
So it's just trying to, you know, limit a,
Say this is what we're doing.
That's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing. That's all it is. Okay, then, okay, so here's the
We did a
stuff.
lot
The next
more
one
than
is the,
collected.
Can I ask just one question, just going back to number 1? We didn't really prove that only a half a megawatt or larger is financially sustainable on the ground mount.
we made it up.
Well, I was gonna say, so I just. wanted to be
You wanna go
careful.
prove it? You wanna go prove it? I'll put whatever you want in here. Go prove it.
Our recommendation, our
It's
opinion.
called a rule of thumb.
Well, this is part of our criteria. Remember, we were starting
Yeah,
saying
right.
we're only gonna select. those.
Actually, this is from NREL. This is the NREL cutoff on sizing for the cost numbers that
The way they do
they
their
provide, it's the way they
benchmarks.
do their benchmarks, so.
You just
I
had
think it's
the word,
defendable.
we believe.
I'm not
That's
you to say
fine.
that, come on.
Well, someone will just, I'm just saying.
Well, we
someone
follow
will just,
industry
you know, be
standards
Right on
or-
that
I think I
thing.
am, Professor Parker or something here?
You sound like one.
Yes,
You're doing
That's
pretty
good,
well.
I take that as a compliment.
It is.
yeah.
Okay, where are we now?
Well, we were discussing refocusing of CMLP to more limited ground mount objectives, and that, you know.
Yeah, I
What
mean,
does
this
it say?
basically says, yeah, this means that this is what we're doing, and there's only a limited amount of solar left for
Okay,
town-owned solar there are only a few I'm having
Okay.
trouble spitting it out. There are only a few known opportunities left. And once those are either built out or discarded as not feasible, we're
we're
done.
done.
We're done
Right.
with ground mount stuff. We're done with CMLP, building and owning more solar.
All right, so here's my question regarding the document that's in front of us. Bullet 1.2 says develop CMLP policy. Would we be trying to develop a few paragraphs about what this policy?
No,
would be?
that would,
That's on-
CMLP would do it.
That's on them.
It's on
They,
them.
they create it.
We're
okay.
gone.
Okay.
Well, why do we have to say it? Our recommendation
Our
is that the
recommendation,
CMLP pursue only ground mounted
Right.
solar installations, period,
right.
For their.
So that's what
within their
1.1 is
ownership.
pretty
within
much.
their ownership, right? It's where we-
That's what 1.1 is, to develop.
Right,
this.
right. So I would say you don't even need 1.2.
Right.
Because our report
That's
is
policy.
saying that's our recommendation. You don't have to
Yeah.
establish a policy.
I think the
Well,
additional recommendation that
Will there be
we've
more?
all agreed to
Okay, I just crossed it out. I'm good.
is we should also indicate that we recommend developing an approach which will encourage private participation.
It's sort of blended into.
That comes later.
Later, yeah.
Right,
Okay, rooftop best fits
Yeah.
behind the meter model.
Right.
Okay, so we talk about, this is the second modality,
Yeah.
so to speak, is.
Yeah.
Building it on the roof.
Right.
Basically saying, well, the cost does not really fit the model for CMLP because it's a loser
but the
and it's too
third,
complicated.
the third modality.
The number's probably more like 40%. It's $1.50 versus $2.50. Right? What is that? I don't have my calculator out.
The third
50% was from
modality,
your numbers,
Okay.
cost to
Alright.
generate.
Oh, the lifetime cost of
Yeah.
energy.
250.
Oh, okay, so you get
Yeah.
like 11 cents or 15 cents and 51.75.
I would just add, ground mounted solar to build. Is 50% more expensive than ground mounted solar to build?
Yeah,
Well, the 50% expense is the cost of energy over the lifetime of the system based on the modeling we did.
Right.
So
Okay.
when you start with the raw cost, which is $1.50 a
Oh,
watt versus $2.50 a watt, that looks like it's not really, it's more, it's only 40% more, but when you end up with all the modeling, it turned out to be almost 50%.
So is
It's a sleight of hand.
It's a little
It's
sleight,
of
right.
hand. It's
It's fine.
50%
Yeah.
close to it.
Yeah, close.
In other words, it costs a lot more.
Can I
Yeah.
just plant a seed for your all's thought? Because you're mentioning that, behind the meter might work well for rooftop. And the only reason behind the meter really works today, right, is because we credit people the retail
Right.
rate.
and that's in here.
And,
Well,
okay,
no, they're offsetting the retail rate. If
Well, they're
they-
offsetting.
Well, you get the net
Right.
meter too.
but
No,
that's not a sustainable model.
no, that's not a
for
sustainable
for
model for
CMLP.
you.
Right,
We're
right.
not expecting that. For every watt, they can offset, they're offsetting a retail watt. So
Well,
that
well-
is whatever.
If it's not sustainable in this paragraph, it's not sustainable for any of these big deals that you're contemplating either.
Which big deals you're talking about?
Like
Middlesex, Fenn School, Concord Academy,
Right,
they'll be net metering too. When all the kids go home from Concord Academy in the summer, boom.
well, they'll be net exporting it likely at that point, and they'll be getting a wholesale rate for everything.
Well, whatever they get, this is why I went after the whole thing of, do you really know what the financials are, and have they had a chance to contemplate these financials that they're gonna be paying money to you to have the gift of, to give the gift of solar on their roof. They may think, well, maybe there's better ways to spend our money. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to know. I don't know what their reaction will be at the end of the day after you're finished with them.
Gavin, you got your hand up.
You see what I'm saying?
Do you have something to say?
Yeah, I was just gonna add, if we could, to the at time of construction part of this, maybe we add, and also large scale renovations or adding a new roof. Rather
Right.
than just new
Right.
construction.
Because I think new construction is the way you want to do it.
But if
I
someone's
think
building a new
it's
roof,
the intelligent, it's the intelligent strategy is to back off from trying to put stuff on old roofs.
Well, if somebody's,
And
if
I
somebody's
think
doing
that,
a roof
that you,
job.
well,
Right.
you're muddying up the water, but you just muddy up the water by throwing all this stuff in there. I'm willing to add anything you want me to add into here, but I think the message is that the town ought to focus on getting new buildings to include solar.
That's no question of it, that's
Yeah.
true.
Now, if somebody wants to do it when they're replacing the roofs, you know, all
Yeah.
the more power.
You're
Nobody's saying
replacing-
no to that.
You're replacing the roof at Alcott, let's just say, it's gonna come up for replacement. If there's gonna be a scheduled replacement for that roof, why wouldn't they wanna also consider at that time putting up solar?
Yeah, that's why I would include the new
So-
roofs. We had talked
Well, let
about
them consider it.
CMLP.
This doesn't say they can't consider it.
Which
we'd
added
encourage
here
the
is a clause.
departments to evaluate the use of solar.
I was actually thinking that.
What do we say here?
Right,
That's not right here. Behind the meter.
Steve, did
I'm
you?
just wondering if the first sentence should be 3 sentences. Because I think you're making the point that roof mounted solar, when installed on a, when the lifetime return on rooftop solar is 50% more expensive, right? That's just one statement, right? Just cut it off there.
Right.
Then you can say, you know, then you can break it up a little bit, right? That for CMLP, the only feasible way that we may think this might make sense is if there's a partnership, or if there's a mitigating circumstance that lowers that cost significantly.
Such as a new roof.
No,
No, it
that's not,
doesn't.
it's paying
No.
CMLP.
It's not gonna change
No,
CMLP.
please, I'm trying to like peel off, to identify.
CMLP is
all-
out of it when it comes to rooftop. They're
But
just-
you haven't said that yet.
Right,
Well,
You gotta
we haven't
say,
said that?
right, what?
What does it say? It says
No,
it down the recommendation,
Right.
doesn't it?
But you say, yeah, but you jump right to, you know, rooftop best fits behind the meter. Your first thing has to
Well,
say is
policy
the
requires
rooftop,
solar
rooftop
arrays
does
on
not
roofs
work
of
for
all
a
these-
CMLP owned system.
Yeah, he's suggesting you just
That's a good
put
point.
it in the first sentence.
Put in the first sentence that-
The finances don't work.
Don't work for CMLP. Right?
Or I would add without a subsidy. Because
well, it's-
there may be federal or state subsidies
I
at
thought
some
we said all
point.
that somewhere else, but that's all right.
there's
Yeah.
nothing like it.
No, but we
upfront,
talked
you
about
have
the
to reiterate it.
constraints. We were sort of saying, what is CMLP supposed to do? Well, we don't think rooftop is viable for CMLP. We do believe that rooftop could be viable behind the meter.
Well, rooftop fits the, I don't want to be argumentative here, but that means rooftop best fits the behind the meter model, which is not the CMLP model. It's the opposite of it.
You wish to
Exactly,
be
that's what I
explicit,
want. We're addressing CMLP
I'll
first.
just put in here, not CMLP model. Something like that.
Why do you want to leave out the unless subsidies become available, such as there are in automobiles today?
I think there's a lot of things that could change. I want to sort of like be very succinct about what our thoughts are today. And just line them up, right? There's lots of, as we've already said, there's lots of different ways we could rethink this thing 5 years from now. But it's like,
You're right, and this is not the CMLP model. I thought it was kind of self-explanatory, but I think it ought to be made clear. Rooftop best fits the behind the meter model, not the CMLP model.
which you're assuming to be a private installation.
Which
When
Or
you say
department.
behind the meter,
behind the meter is always a private installation.
but you don't say it. No, I'm just saying, if you say it doesn't work for CMLP owned installations. it may work for privately owned behind the meter installations.
Privately owned or department.
Or
Has
or town-
department.
or town-
Or town owned behind the meter, yeah, right.
Yeah,
I'm just saying the same thing twice.
yeah.
Because the audience might not know what you mean.
Well,
They don't-
it's either town owned or privately owned, it's whatever,
That's what
whoever
Wendy's-
owns it,
yeah, that's
it's
what Wendy's
just
saying.
not
Right.
CMLP.
It's not
Yeah.
CMLP,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Whoever has it,
Right,
you
right.
know,
Yeah.
God owns it.
But we
God
know
could
when
own
you
it.
say behind the meter, it's not CMLP, but the readers of this.
Well, I
don't.
just said, not CMLP,
Okay.
does that do it?
Yeah, that does.
Okay.
I hate words.
Right. No, this is good, it's good to get this out.
Do we think that there's like, if the town, I'm just talking out loud, if the town really felt there were 4 departments that really could benefit from this,
Mhm.
do we want to speak to or make any recommendations on how the town, big town, might want to approach something like that? Would they ask CMLP to take a role in coordinating a contract, or would each of the 4 departments, I'm just again making it up,
Mhm.
would each department independently go out and get their own contract? Or does our.
Well, I think
facility-
this leaves it open to any way they want to do it. I mean, let's say the schools said, geez, and Gavin on the CAC.
Yeah.
Said, well, yeah, let's get together and do something. We'll go to the town and we'll get money to do this. Which Kerry would love and everybody would love. And look, we'll go get a couple million and we'll do all these rooftops. CMLP doesn't have to get involved in that, right?
Sure, I just didn't know if there was, a role for any, do we have any recommendations on if there was more than one department? Is there anything like?
The school, for
something that-
instance, does not have the technical competence.
None of the departments
no.
do. I guess that's
Yeah.
my point. Does the
Right,
town, do we have a recommendation on how town departments might want to do it? Could CMLP be contracted somehow, just
No.
to facilitate a contract?
No, I don't think that's a good idea.
I'm just
Well,
talking out loud. I'm just-
Okay, so you want to talk about whether that should be a recommendation?
No, I just,
I think
is there
that,
any recommendation?
I think that it's going out and getting solar put on a roof is a well understood process that does not necessarily need to involve
But do we have, do we have
distribution systems and CMLP
Right,
type
but do we have
organizations.
facility managers in town that are consolidated?
It does require
No,
technical.
you go out and hire, you go out and hire it, you go out and hire somebody to do this, you go, it's a project. The town doesn't have the ability to figure out how to do certain kinds of HVAC systems. They go,
Well, they built
they
facility
don't know
managers,
how to build pools.
Right.
They go,
but-
like get RFPs and they get bids and they get,
To Wendy's point, under behind the meter,
Yeah,
and we're saying town-owned entities could do behind the meter.
Yep.
Do we encourage them to do that? Knowing that they're paying retail and that their feasibility might be different than I know that you could saying BD and everything else, but
Yeah.
is there any recommendation from this committee that says other departments paying retail might still consider rooftop under a series of circumstances? And has nothing to do with CMLP yet, they have to, but should we encourage them to have an initiative using town-owned money to put it on their buildings?
I think it's
I
one of
mean,
those
BD's
capital
small, though, right?
things
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
when a capital investment is being made in a building,
Mhm.
that the sustainability function needs to be part of the checklist. Is this the time? Is this
Right.
is this the project? Is this the place where we have an adder that says
Right,
solar now?
so,
And that is probably, something that flows through Eric or something,
Right.
So,
as a person
it
who
would
looks
say-
over a capital project and goes, what's the sustainability,
Yeah. So-
scorecard for this project or
So-
something?
but we're already saying here that we want all new town buildings to have solar.
but we're also saying renovation here.
And they'll all be
that's
behind,
just- yeah.
but we're
again,
not saying, we're not talking about renovations here.
I know.
Well-
We're saying
So-
renovations are probably not a good idea.
Exactly, then we say that, for behind the meter installations by other town departments or town-owned buildings, we don't recommend it as a retrofit. But if there are circumstances of new construction or substantial construction where a rooftop may be part of the solution for that building, we would encourage it, provided it's financially feasible, something like that.
should be considered.
should be considered. I'm
You're
just,
saying
yeah,
retrofits.
there's,
it
there's,
wouldn't-
there's two different, yeah, we don't want them to retrofit behind the meter. We don't think it's gonna make sense, right?
You don't wanna take a look at a building and say, let's just go put it on the building. But if
You wanna
you're
evaluate.
doing a new roof on the building,
Yeah.
then maybe that's a moment when
Yeah.
you say,
That's, yeah.
is this the
Like
right?
Beatty,
Yeah.
Can we, yeah, like
Well,
Beatty.
like Beatty.
Yeah.
You go, okay, we're putting a new roof up here, let's put some solar with.
Some
the-
town departments might wanna
Yeah.
evaluate the implementation of solar,
Yeah.
You know.
feasibility of solar.
CMS.
Yeah.
Is solar on CMS only because this, the town wanted it, the school wanted it? How did it get there?
Still want it.
On what?
On CMS, how did this, what was the initiative to put solar on a new building?
Complicated,
It's
Okay.
complicated. It's not only is it complicated, but
nasty.
You don't wanna talk about-
CMLP is gonna own it, which is
Yeah,
probably
okay,
not the model that.
right.
Not,
Yeah.
not, our choice.
Yeah, I
That
know.
was town
Yeah, I know,
manager
I know.
dictated.
That's
Yeah,
why.
I know.
We hear you. We're not-
Other circumstances.
No argument there.
Right, yeah, okay, sorry.
All right, can we
Moving on.
get through this?
So you wanna have something about, some mealy mouth thing about, we don't wanna do it, but we would do it, but we would say it, but if the financials work out, okay, but no, but.
You get tired.
Yeah, no,
You what?
You must be getting tired.
Of course I am.
no, to Wendy's point, there's other departments, there may be initiatives like the Beatty Center. And are we saying, Beatty Center is a perfect example, we don't believe that it's viable on town-owned buildings in a retrofit. No, but there may be other circumstances where new buildings may wish to consider it, and we encourage solar to be thought of in all of those circumstances.
Circumstances.
I think on new buildings, we do more than encourage.
Well,
Right.
that,
It's a-
we're gonna
that's
have a
a-
policy which says you have to do it.
Okay, okay,
That's in there.
okay.
But you wanna say something about, we don't believe retrofit's a good idea,
Yeah,
but
I
if the money somehow was there and it could be financially justified,
I'm
we
trying
would
to.
be okay with that?
Trying to think
Something like
if
that?
someone in the town picks up this report and says, okay, Beatty Center
CMLP's
or,
gonna do their roof over
right,
in 2 years.
And
Like,
they
do you
go-
think, does it make sense to put solar on it? I mean, it was funded, but is that a retrofit?
that's a retrofit.
Is it a retrofit?
Yeah, it
Because
could
it's already
be,
been
yeah.
authorized.
Not,
too.
not just the roof
Right.
membrane, the
Yeah.
whole roof
Right.
needs to structurally be able to support it. It's not
Right,
just
no, I
changing
know.
the roof.
Yeah.
No,
I get it.
you're putting on, you're gonna go put a whole new membrane on and you do a study, just like we're trying to
Right.
do over at the high school.
Right.
And they say, oh, by the way, the structure can support it,
Right,
then
then
maybe
maybe
you
it's
do
okay,
it.
yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's why I think we should include the rooftop part in addition to construction. Circle back, but you know what I mean, Charlie,
In
just
certain
include.
cases- In certain cases, retrofits are okay, and then we'll embellish that a little bit.
Yeah.
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 But I think Gavin, you're gonna have to take the lead on a lot of this stuff over there at CAC.
Yeah, it's a
When
good point. It's a good point.
When buildings are
Yeah.
being.
If you wanna do,
Evaluated.
if you wanna do the schools, that's kind of on you.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
You're the man.
Mhm.
We'll be watching.
Yeah. How's our time doing here?
We are well beyond, the
So we
issue.
got that one change to this, which is about retrofits, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so parking
Right, yeah.
canopies, we're okay with that one?
Yeah.
Right?
yes.
It's,
How about the, we want to add some stuff around the grant. I don't think we can say that we want to record that these two things have to go on the town meeting for next year because we don't know whether they're feasible. I think somebody else is gonna have to pick up the sort of the driver role on this, making it happen. And maybe that's you, Gavin.
Or maybe this committee is reconstituted in some
Maybe,
other
maybe it
form,
is,
but,
maybe it is.
Who knows?
Who knows?
And I think
Well,
that,
you
to
should-
me, is the answer to not having a new committee every 2 years who comes up with a nice report, period.
All right. You have,
So,
Okay.
your point is well.
Is CMLP to vet the future sites? Do you
We're
have action
supposed
plan for CMLP and town for these sites? But who's vetting the sites,
we're
CMLP?
supposed to vet them.
Well, it's
That's
our-
the
that's
report.
kind
It's
of
our
our-
job.
that's our
So
job.
we need
That's
to
our
do it
job.
and make the recommendation.
We need to vet what?
The sites, the 4 sites.
Right.
that
We're
we
done,
recommend.
we're done with that, though. We're done as a committee.
We came up with
Wow.
4 sites.
Yeah,
Now,
but
what
so
further
Mary would
vetting?
also tell us that we have to address any of the criticisms and all that kind of stuff.
We have to
Right.
talk to the public, Oh,
We don't
overcome-
have
overcome
any,
We're supposed to
we haven't
overcome.
done the work on these sites yet to know halfway what we're talking about. We haven't spent any
So
time
how
on
do we
the,
put forth a recommendation on the,
Well, yeah,
Amendalia
I'm-
land?
these
We
are,
haven't
these
talked
are,
about
these
the-
are prospective sites, they're possibilities, they are cards that we threw up the stairs. We don't know anything about these sites.
But
I
I
hate to
think
say, I hate to say it, but we haven't done any work on them.
I
have we?
know, so,
Which is all the more reason why we shouldn't just disband.
so we,
Why
Well,
is-
but remember, you have Gavin too that can do stuff.
that
The-
this
the
committee,
town-
Other committees.
The town should continue to vet these
and I
sites.
think the expectation of our charter. is
Well,
that we-
determine requirements for vetting sites, develop action plan with CMLP and for town with, okay,
All I'm
so.
saying is who is responsible who are you recommending to 4.1? Pin the tail on the donkey here. Who's gonna vet?
Well,
those
I
sites?
think the only group that can do this right now, would exist if when we wrap up, would be Gavin.
And say that.
Have a template,
So let's just,
but we haven't, these are kind of spitballs. I didn't
Yeah, I
know.
let's just
really
back
what
up
to
a
say.
minute.
Okay.
Let's back up a little bit here. We took GIS images of where sites exist,
Mhm.
identified these sites, kind of ballparked
Bracketed
the
them.
scale.
Yeah.
We pursued as hard as we could
Mhm.
2 sites. And we did not get to the end line.
Right,
We did not.
Nowhere
But
close.
these other sites, the filter beds,
All that, yeah.
the Amendalia, they're just pieces of paper with, a little red circle around the space.
That's
You know,
right.
that's really where we are.
It's just something we printed off of the GIS.
So,
Well, actually, no offense.
No,
they
I know,
were
I'm
given
just
to you.
kidding.
They were
We were
given
given
to
to
you.
the GIS.
Right,
Right,
okay. I particularly remember the red line.
Yeah.
Right.
so, very good.
I don't know why we didn't have the red line around the whole thing. But-
Yes, exactly.
I
And to
finished
me,
the next
the
year
most
later.
basic question is, are we gonna close our shop and say, form another committee? Or are we gonna recommend extending the charter and the work of this committee to finish the job?
our
We
charter,
can probably talk about that. At least in the next meeting. I just don't wanna, we're already well over time now. I just wanna
Can I
finish
just
here,
point
but
out
I
that
think that's an important point.
we have a
Bill.
charter that we have to
fulfill.
fulfill, maybe we need to go back and reread it,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah,
Because
we need
I
to-
don't,
And
I think we
modify
need to
it.
go back and reread it and make sure
Reread
that
what?
we're fulfilling it, because I don't think we are.
I
Well,
don't,
We're supposed to develop a prioritized list of sites and a plan for 2030, which I think is kind of like a timeline.
yeah, we haven't done it.
I know, so
So-
we haven't,
So we need more time because
We
we've
might
spent
need
our
more
time trying to
know.
develop 2 sites that
I
never
know.
got developed and we still. and
I
we
think
need
we're
more
good.
time, You
I
know,
think we're good.
Haven't been developed yet, Dean.
Yeah.
Not
Right.
never been
I
developed.
know. Yeah.
we worked as hard as we could.
I-
So what do we do with this? We're,
And walk away with the job
No,
not done.
I
I
think
don't
Wendy
like
has a
that at
good
all.
point,
Yeah.
that more work will be required
Yeah.
to get these mapped out and to get these, maybe meet with neighbors or do something with some of these sites. I mean, there's not that many sites
Right,
and we can do more work to understand them better.
and how much time do we have?
I don't have, well, we can ask for time, but this is due by the end of the town meeting, so, but, we can ask for time.
Yeah, the charge read no later than April.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's not nitpick it.
So
leave it-
the assumption is what we know now is what we know, and we're not gonna get continued because there's no agreement to do that, so we're stuck with this.
That's not true. We
Yeah,
can.
we're stuck with this for now.
We can,
This
You
is
can
a
ask
report
at a later point and you
Right.
can negotiate.
right now,
And the people that-
this is where we are.
Right.
But we need to recognize, and I think Wendy's point is well taken, that the sites that we've identified and worked through, one of which is highly speculative, the wastewater treatment plant is highly speculative because you're assuming there that you're gonna get the wastewater treatment plant from MCI and that way, then these become available. That's what Alan told me. So,
They're all highly speculative.
and Amendalia, well, no, Amendalia is something where we could, have like a neighborhood
Right.
meeting, call a public meeting and, you know.
You didn't go,
drive.
you apparently didn't go to the last public.
Yeah.
meeting,
All right.
Where people
There'll be
came in with
tomatoes and
with towel
pitchforks.
and, you know, beat the dew out of all the town, you know, people who had proposed this, including Chris Whalen.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you were there for that,
No, but I heard about
but yeah, it was nasty.
So what, we take it off the list?
I didn't say that.
We're
I just said that,
We're afraid we don't have.
don't be, I think you made some comment about
A friendly neighborhood
that
meeting.
these were looking,
Well, I was also trying to put it in a place which was not,
Not
it wasn't
like-
like we weren't building fence line to fence line, you
Right.
know, we weren't gonna
well,
build
well,
right up
well,
to
okay,
somebody's
so
property line.
you've got the basin.
Yeah.
Are we gonna do much more in vetting the basin
No,
before?
zero. We've done as much bedding
Okay.
over there as we can.
We've got the landfill.
Yeah.
There's no more vetting to do there. They're
Those are the
doing the
two,
vetting.
right? Those are the
They're
two.
doing the vetting.
And the nuclear
And
site.
Mendalia is like, I don't know about that one.
Well, but you,
Yeah.
you want to refine it.
And then
You-
there's the
you want-
wastewater, then there's the
Yeah.
wastewater treatment plant that you can't do anything with.
Well, let's get
Well,
it
you
right.
could, you
You know
could
what?
at least
Well,
scope
you
it
can
out.
get it in writing, but I think
Alan told me.
there
Yeah,
isn't
to
much you
do-
can do there. He told you what the story was.
No,
2 and 4.
he said we could do 2 and 4,
Four.
and that was the little,
Right.
outside the
2 and
sidebar
4, if
conversation
if
about
I get,
MCI.
Right.
if I get my deal with MCI.
No, he's
No.
not what he
That's
told me.
not-
He lost-
That's what he told you.
That, yeah.
We're gonna
What-
bring Laura to a meeting.
He told you?
Yeah, what he told me, which was a sidebar conversation, was leave them, leave all of it in there. And if I get the wastewater treatment plant over here at MCI, then those become available.
And that'll take time.
Yeah. that'll take
So
time.
I
Everything
guess my
takes
comment
time.
is how much more vetting can you do on that? There, I'm just reacting to your comment about, oh, we need to gotta vet these things. Well, there isn't a whole lot of vetting. You can have a neighborhood meeting on a Mendalia, and that would not be fun.
Well, it will kill it for whatever.
Is that what you wanna do?
I'm not
But-
saying I wanna kill it, I'm just saying we have to do our due diligence,
Right.
at least do something.
I think it's reasonable to at least call a meeting and send out postcards to all butters like they do for the NRC. If you have a filing, you have to be noticing of butters.
Yeah, okay, so.
Yeah, sure. go
So you
ahead.
have to have a specific proposal then.
unilaterally extending your
Right,
deadline.
that's what I was, I was,
Have a deadline.
Right.
Okay.
this report is due in April. Let it stand as where we stand
In
in April
April,
and stop. If somebody gets this report and says, you know what, they didn't finish, let them say something about it.
that's another way to go about it. Yeah.
Because,
I think we're done.
fine,
I'm hoping you have.
No, I don't mean,
No,
I don't
no.
mean in terms of whether there's a follow-on or not. I mean, that this committee stuff in terms of what we can
Right, yeah.
do. We've basically done what we could do.
I just don't think we-
Except for the recommendations as to what
Well, we don't-
should be done, where we,
Oh, except for
To be
cleaning
much
the wording
stronger.
up here. Yeah. But can we go out and do more stuff? Do you think you really can do
Public meeting.
a public meeting with a Mendalia and give the advance notice and all this kind of, do you think we can do that?
You're in time.
Well, we don't have
We're out of
time.
time.
We will.
So that's off
timed
the
out.
list.
you've timed out.
You're timed up.
So we can't do
Yeah.
that.
Just,
Right.
but there's still, all you're saying is something more has to be done. You've timed out, something more has to be done.
So do
That's all you
we
need to
know,
say.
do we know that we can meet 20 megawatts of solar?
Determine requirements for
We've already
vetting
said
future
we can't.
sites.
So we
We've already
can't.
said we
Right.
Determine requirement for vetting future sites.
We
Determine
said,
requirements.
we said,
That's what it
with
says.
these estimates,
That's,
we're at,
just leave it.
we're at
Leave it
like
as-
18.
Move on to the next one.
except for.
Somebody else has to
Somebody
take
else
this.
has to do it, right?
If McNabb has to take this on, or somebody has to take this on, unless Mary says that she wants to have a new committee.
No, you take it back to, no.
Okay, you're going to submit a written report,
Right,
right? And I'm hoping that you'll be on the agenda probably in June to come in and talk to the select board team.
Yeah, okay.
And that, by then, I'm hoping that we can figure out, what are possible next steps? Maybe it's to hand it over to the Climate Action Committee. Maybe it's to resurrect this. I don't know. That's for you to decide, or for us to decide.
We can make a recommendation.
So the timeline that I'm thinking is written report as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Okay, and then come and talk to us in June based on your written report, and we'll talk about potential next steps. So potential next steps is maybe a part of your report. But we need a
You need a
report.
report.
Potential next steps are what?
Part of your report.
Yeah. If you think a next step should be in the report. Otherwise,
All right.
people who read it may come up with those next steps all by themselves.
On their own, right.
And handing it over to another committee, we've done that 4 times in the history. Why do we wanna have 5?
So I think, okay, moving right along. Can we move right along?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I think we got the idea about we have to vet sites and
Right, that's simple, general enough.
now addressing CMLP grid vulnerability. I think we should align this with the stuff that better tighten it up to make it more.
Along with the article.
Right.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
article that's going in,
So
right.
I have installed 2 megawatt, 4 megawatt hours battery on vulnerable bus, which supports the WR Grace arrays as a matter of high priority.
That's turned.
So we
into
just changed the
5
number.
megawatt,
Change the number.
So it should be
Yeah.
5 megawatt, and what is it?
15 megawatt hour.
15
Yeah.
megawatt hours.
Can I could interrupt for a minute before I forget something? I think what Wendy said earlier about rating the charge and addressing what's in the charge is a really good idea. And some of the things that you weren't able to do, for whatever reason, good reasons, address that as well.
Yeah.
Address why you
Okay.
couldn't do that.
Okay.
That's my,
No, that's fair.
that's my recommendation.
And what should be done about that?
Okay.
So what about the rest of the stuff here? We had 5.2, install intelligent controllers. Okay, good there. Monitor and develop 365 day load profile for vulnerable bus. Well, I think that's really a part of their planning,
It is part of it.
engineering and planning. I don't think we need to have 5.3 or 5.4 in here.
No, I don't think so.
Take that out.
That's
Did you
something
scratch the sentence that says the extent of the vulnerability is unknown?
Where's that?
Now,
Yeah.
It's the second
Yeah, second
sentence
sentence.
Yeah,
in 5 in the main paragraph. The extent of the vulnerability, Laura just gave us, or
Yeah,
Jason just gave us
just
a
gave it.
chart, what the world is showing us the vulnerability
well, on bus 1,
on bus 2.
2,
Well, it's sort of known, but I guess,
Substantially known.
It's
Somewhat
pretty
known.
well,
well, maybe we just cross that whole sentence out.
Or is an identified problem?
yeah, the extent.
So you can
It's a
say
long sentence, though.
CML's, has stated vulnerability is limited to a few
Yeah.
peak days.
Hmm,
Yeah, strike it now.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay, we're good there. Yeah, good, good. Okay, in the interest of time, maybe we can go to the next page. Okay. Load data. Do we need this? We need this stuff
I
here?
don't, so,
Or do we just want to say that, you know, we encourage MLP to gather and increase their data gathering of some sort?
their SCADA project should
Yeah.
take care of it.
Right, this- yeah.
We anticipate that SCADA will provide this information. We encourage them to continue the development of this with something like that simple.
Do we need number 6 at all? We just cross it out.
So if you come for solar later, do you need better data or do you think it won't matter anymore? Once everything's been done under the
given
battery and everything
CMLP
else?
strategy, I think they're gonna address it. If you get SCADA,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think this is speaking to the choir on this one.
Let her go.
I mean, we're not requesting a feasibility study either, so.
No,
I thought it was pretty cool, but
It was.
see that, I don't really have any particular ownership of any of this stuff, just cross that out. Okay, peak shaving and battery storage, blah, blah, blah.
now you wanna,
Yeah, it looks okay. So,
So the peak, can I ask a dumb question? This peak shaving,
there
Laura.
we go. Does she meet?
Yeah, she
Yeah,
had
she's
to
at
leave.
the end.
So the peak shaving that we're, I mean, are we targeting CMLP's peak or the ISO?
ISO.
so
It
it's the
is,
only
right?
place to
Yeah.
get
I
money
mean,
back.
so, yeah, okay, cause you.
But support ISO peak shaving.
It's
strategy?
ISO, right?
So, in terms of this bigger battery, are you saying that you need this larger battery configuration because you need to cover a larger period of time based on the fact that you're getting better probabilities of?
Jason said that, but, and it's true directionally, but it doesn't pay for itself. So in other words, I think in the models we showed you, the difference between the 3-hour duration and the 2-hour. In the 3-hour, I was assuming we hit 10 of the 12 monthly transmission
Yeah,
peaks.
that's-
And in the 2-hour battery, I was assuming. I don't remember the number exactly off the top of my head, but let's say it was 8 out of the 12.
But you're gonna pile the whole thing into that 1 hour. You say, well, it's gonna be between this hour and that hour, boom!
No.
I'm gonna offload and shave the Concord peak
Now, you
at
could
my
shave for
projected
2 hours.
ISO
Yeah.
peak,
Yeah,
or 2 hours,
you
2
could
hours.
fully shave for 2
2
hours.
hours.
Yeah.
Or you could
That's the
shave for
point.
3 hours
Slightly
by
less,
just
yeah.
giving 2 megawatts,
Right.
then
Oh,
building to
more.
4, and then
Then
2 on
shrink
the
it.
other end, like a little, like a little.
Bell curve.
But what Jason had started to say was that the bigger battery will help you with the financial peaks because you'll have a higher probability of hitting the peaks, which is true, but you wouldn't, that is not a justification enough to pick the 3-hour battery or the 2-hour battery. You look at these for-profit companies, they don't pick 3-hour batteries, they pick 2-hour batteries.
That's
because
why
they-
I really would prefer.
And the extra cost will
So,
make you a trader, Dean, and you'll fit right in, that'll be great, but
so,
we're not,
yeah, so we're okay, we're good.
yeah, we're good.
We're good.
Is the
This
battery
is giving us 15 hours, right?
capable of dual use
Well, it's
We're good.
15
is
megawatt
when
hours,
it's
but
not being
you could
used
push it out
for peaks,
at a
we have
rate
extra
5, so
capacity?
you 15
Isn't
divided
that
by 5,
a
you
way-
can push it
Okay,
out
3 hours.
3 hours.
Getting
Okay.
cheap electricity
Oh, I
at
get
night?
it, okay.
So we didn't go over the rooftop stuff, how
Yes,
much of the
that,
rooftop
and
stuff do
what
you
we call
want to
energy
include?
arbitrage, and that
Right.
value
I'm
is
gonna
baked in there
pass
as
on the
well.
rooftop.
Okay.
I didn't
It's
do that.
late, it's 9 o'clock, so,
It's,
you know.
we do that in the model,
It makes sense.
Yeah.
but it doesn't make nearly as much money as the beach
Okay.
area.
All right, moving on.
But
Sorry,
before we
Yeah.
conclude, I know I sound like a broken record on this, but I want to think about maybe including a recommendation of the newer technologies that can ameliorate some of these solar saturation problems. Namely, can CMLP study using batteries that exist in the town? Like if everyone has an EV, those are batteries right there that don't have to pay upfront costs for CMLP. Same thing with the school buses right near WR Grace.
Now,
So
wouldn't this be stuff for you to do in the CAC?
Yeah, I think.
I think this
bigger.
is
I don't
good
think it's
stuff.
Solar.
Good stuff for you. Put it on your list.
I think we should include it in the report as well, though. And especially in this 7 section here, or maybe number 5, about addressing vulnerability.
But we didn't work on that stuff.
Yeah.
We have no,
We have no purview.
we have no,
I think it's outside our scope.
I think it's a little,
it's outside of our, well, it's wishful thinking also a little bit.
well, I think
It's undeveloped topics, let's put it that way. That's a better way to put it.
But there are some conflicts, so Gavin, I mean, how many cars are gonna be plugged in between 11 AM and 3 PM?
That's why I was talking about there using the buses during the day. 2 different ideas: the virtual power plant idea with batteries in town and people's cars, and then also electric school buses. In the meeting on Tuesday, I talked about this at the Climate Action Committee. It's something we're going to work on. But in the report here, if we're thinking about long-term battery storage, I mean, if the school is going to be maybe over the next decade buying 42 electric school buses and parking them right at WR Grace, right near the solar array, I mean, I think CMLP should have an interest in getting together with the school committee and discussing, can those buses be used as battery backup? And as a part of our committee, that's why I'm thinking about, if we're enabling storage in the future, this could be one recommendation, to have CMLP study this.
But that's kind of a different project. It's a different project kind of scope thing. Because you're talking about storage that's kind of owned by the schools, because it's in the buses and, you know,
Yeah, it could be
beautiful
out.
grid arrangements, all this kind of stuff. I don't know. I don't see how we could include it in here.
Can we make a simple statement that says, we encourage the town's sustainability committee to continue to investigate all possible options,
Other technologies.
and other things, just very soft.
Yeah.
We don't have to list
I
the
like
whole
it.
thing,
We
but
encourage Gavin
Yeah.
to get his committee to do all the stuff that we couldn't do.
Well, we
I
encourage
mean,
the
I think-
towns-
I'm not
Yeah.
trying to be flippant here. I'm trying to say that there are other people that are involved in related tasks here.
Yeah.
That we continue to encourage them to,
So
investigate.
the thing that we've really stumbled into here, as a solar task force, is the synergy between storage and solar.
Yeah.
And what's ending up happening is we're really leaning into the storage,
Right.
when in fact, we're trying to get to solar.
Solar,
done.
right.
So we've spent a lot of time on storage, and that drives us even further into storage to
Right.
talk about virtual power plants and.
Yeah.
That's right, that's
alternate-
right. So it gets way far down the end of the leaf.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm just
We're trying to
delegating.
work
and
at the
I'm
front,
just
trying to work
pushing
on the
off,
trunk,
saying,
and we're out at the end of the
We
leaf.
encourage
Yeah.
them,
I mean,
not us. to
These
do it.
synergies exist,
Right.
but our main thing is solar.
Is solar.
That's very well said.
Yeah.
What is our reluctance to recommend that the work of this task force be continued with an expansion and its responsibility as follows. In other words, why not be proactive?
we may turn it, we may decide to become proactive. I want to get us over the hump of getting our main charge.
Yeah.
Main charge taken care of. The select board is going to view this as, gee, these folks spent a lot of time and look
Yeah.
how little actually occurred. Okay? And
Right.
not for lack of trying,
No.
not for lack of trying. And so the select board is going to recognize that it's going to take continued constant pressure in order to get things to actually happen. So it's likely that the select board would be, thinking that something like this, what we have here continues. And, is it this collection of people? Is it a different charge? Is it but that's a future day. That's another day to talk about that.
And we shouldn't recommend that to them.
Well, we should recommend that the town continue to push hard on creating solar because we can see how hard this is to get done.
Yeah, we don't wanna let them to decide whether they
Yeah.
wanna have another committee.
Yeah, one thing about the town, there's a lot of committees. So the question is, should the CAC just have that as?
Well,
Right.
yeah, I mean,
Their charter?
it seems
I
logical
don't know.
that the CAC,
you know?
Gavin, I mean, what are you guys doing? You guys, is this something that you can pick up or what? I mean, what,
Well, I
Well,
also think
yeah,
that the selectmen,
Sorry.
what?
I was gonna say,
Go
our
ahead,
charge,
Gavin.
our charge as a committee is to implement the climate action report from 2020, which includes increasing solar and storage in town. So that's, we're working on that. That's part of the
So
reason
you
why
could
I'm on
do,
this.
you could do
committee.
this, you could vet these sites, you could do all this stuff, right?
Or the CMLP board could collaborate with you and
Yeah.
choose what their priority project
who?
will be.
Yeah.
The CMLP board in collaboration with the climate action
Oh,
committee.
CMP Light
because-
Board, the Light Board,
Yeah,
yeah,
the
yeah.
light board.
Yeah,
CML.
Light Board and
Yeah.
CMP,
Yeah.
so,
You guys should collaborate on.
give
finding-
Gavin some stuff to do, this would be a good thing.
He just
be
took
good.
over as chair of the committee.
I know these committees, I know what's going on,
All right.
yeah, it's good.
So I do think that Bill's got a point, and that is that if the town does not have a continued focus and a place where this resides, then it will just become shelfware and we gotta be careful.
Well, that would be my recommendation, that Gavin pick this up and to Wendy's point, in conjunction and in coordination with the light board. And to follow these policies. I think there's some good directional stuff in here.
Yeah.
It basically says, do this, don't do that, focus on this, we want this policy and so forth. And, I think,
The thing that is a repeating pattern, every 2 years, we reinvent the wheel. And
No.
we write a nice report.
that's not true, Phil. We did the whole CMS thing. CMS thing is
Yeah,
huge.
okay. Yeah.
Battery, a meg and a half of solar arrays.
But nothing led to 1 watt of solar power.
No, it's
No,
not.
it's led to a 1.5 megawatts
Yeah.
is fully funded and we have a complete design. And construction is gonna start as soon as the parking lots are done. I don't know what the construction date is, but kind of in there, right?
CMS.
For CMS. These guys are fully ramped up to build this thing. It's a monster. Right?
Every
I don't-
parking space
monster's a
over there
bad
is
word.
gonna have a canopy.
It's a
on top of
beautiful
it.
thing.
Right.
I meant the monster as a word to complement the capability of this power.
It's not gonna be
Power.
built by the time the school opens.
That's okay,
Not by February.
but it's gonna be,
If the school
but
doesn't open
you're,
till
you're,
November,
you're on
You
track
need the summer to get it in
with
there.
commitments to
Yeah.
build it and to go out with an RFP and to do all this kind of stuff.
And then they
It
find
bids.
out that it's expensive and drop
No,
it.
no, that's.
No, it's
no,
receding,
no,
it's
no,
receding.
no, stop, you know.
It's gonna
Yeah,
happen.
it's gonna happen.
It's gonna
All right.
We gotta
I
get
think-
you a copy of the bridge,
Can
you
we
gotta
have
start
a
reading
motion?
this.
Are we done with this?
I think we need a
Okay.
motion here.
I make a motion. that
Wait,
we-
is there anybody on
Public
the
comment?
phone who wants to speak publicly to the public.
Is there any public person here?
I don't know.
Oh, we killed them all off.
Well, I don't know. Tracy Morano was on.
Oh, was she?
She was.
Oh,
yeah.
I-
But-
Give
Yeah,
her
she
a-
still
give her
is. There she is. Hi,
There she is.
Tracy.
Great. Oh, my goodness.
We-
she's
any
suffered
comment?
through.
I have no public comment. It's very.
Oh, there you go.
Good,
Okay.
well, that's good.
All right.
You're very helpful, very
We're
helpful
looking-
tonight.
Thank you for
Thank
hanging
you.
around.
Yeah.
All right. We
Okay, I make
have,
a motion to adjourn.
I need a second.
Second.
And then we'll take a roll call because Gavin's on the phone still. Okay, Gavin,
Aye.
Steve, Phil,
Hi.
Wendy,
Yes.
Charlie, and I am out. We are out. Okay, thank you all.